What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitman. It's your host, Stephen. Who I have in the studio today, everybody, is Joseph Dumond, and he is a biblical calendar scholar. He's an author, he's a seasoned speaker, and he's a gentleman who's visited many landmarks that, you know, can be traced all the way back to biblical scripture. And we're going to get into all of it, folks. And we're even going to get into the eschatology stuff, and I think he's going to pull me into the deep water with that. So hang in tight, strap in. Folks, if it's your first time coming across the channel or you're returning, you want to support the show, it's free. Smash that subscribe button over on YouTube. And, if you're not on the video side of things, head on over to the audio where we're out there on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're pretty much on anything where you can consume all your podcast audio content. While you're there, if you like this show, make sure you drop a follow, leave a 5-star review, and hit that notification bell. We do drop episodes strictly on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. But with all that behind us, Joseph, brother, welcome to the show, man. Thanks.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Steve. I'm excited to be here. I'm just ready to go. Where do you want to start?
Right. Oh, man. Listen, I read your bio. I got into it. It's fully decked out. It drawed me in. You know, you definitely did a great job with it. I saw that you visited Mount Ararat. It's okay. So you corrected me actually in the green room, but everyone kind of knows where, Noah's Ark is, Mount Ararat, that this is like where, it looks like the shape of the boat, right, in the side of the mountain and all of that stuff. I mean, you've been to Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia. You've probably been to so many other places, actually physically. I've only been to these places, on Google Earth. But I tell you what, before we get in all of that, why don't you just inform the audience a little bit about yourself and where they can support you the most?
So my website is sightedmoon.com, and we have a free newsletter. We're giving away 2 free books called The Stones Cry Out. So if you go to our store, look at The Stones Cry Out, they're PDFs. You can get them both for free. I'm going to get your email, and then you'll get my newsletter. If you don't like it, unsubscribe, keep the books, read it, learn the Bible. That's what we want you to do. And I don't care if you do it with me or somebody else, but just learn the Bible. And what you're going to find out today is that we are out of time. So I'm very blunt and direct because I don't got time to be playing religion anymore. And people don't like that. They want to play religion. Oh, go someplace else. I'm going to be very straight up, very much. Some people say I'm in your face. Okay, but I'm talking to you face to face. So there's no question that you can ask that I'm afraid to answer. And I will give you an answer. And if I don't have an answer, I'll go find it. But I've been doing this since 1981. That's when I sort of had my first wake-up call. And then in 2005, I learned about the Jubilee cycles. And that gave me my understanding for a lot of the things I've now teach and talk about. But, up until 2005, I was quite content to sit in my pew and let somebody else tell me what I believed and just be a good little churchgoer. And so the wake-up call was kind of amazing. It came all at once. All of a sudden, I knew how to figure out the Jubilee cycles, and I had 11 that I could start with. We've now got 68. So we're going to get into that. You may disagree with my chronology here. That's fine. My challenge to every one of your listeners is prove me wrong. I double, triple dare you to prove me wrong. Oh, he sounds so arrogant. Yes, I may be. Prove me wrong. If you can prove me wrong, I don't have to do this anymore. But if you can't prove me wrong, then you become another witness that must go out there and warn the people because we're out of time.
No, I like it. I mean, especially with kind of what's going on. I don't know if you saw recently, Trump is starting to make, a whole nother big peace deal, or, thing with the Middle East, right? Gaza and Israel. Things are kind of playing part where it almost seems like prophecy is fulfilling in front of us in some sort of way. Maybe precursors, but something's happening.
It's fulfilling big time. Yes, unless you're living under a rock, you had to see what just happened in Israel yesterday. It's amazing. Trump and the getting the hostages back. 2 years to the day, if you count on the Hebrew calendar, 2 years today. It's a week after October 7th, but on the Hebrew calendar, it's 2 years to the very day. Again, there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about there. I don't know where you want to go. Do you want to go to Noah's Ark? Because Noah's Ark is in the mountains of Ararat. Yes, I went there. to prove that this Bible's true. I got somebody told me the stuff I was learning, you know, it may not be right. So I had to do a deep dive and said, if I'm going to don't devote myself to this Bible, then I got to know what it says, and I got to do what it says, and I got to believe what it says. But if you're not going to do that, then just be a hypocrite and pretend that you do whatever you want. So I had the opportunity to go see Noah's Ark. It's in eastern Turkey, just I don't know, 30 miles away from the border of Iran. Actually, Noah's Ark itself is right on the border with Iran. The When I went there, there's a lot of strange things going on. This is back in 2007. It's amongst the first groups of people to be able to go and see it. So it was awesome. It checks out with every legend around the world. It matches every description in those religions. It matches the description in the Bible when you look at the Hebrew, not the English translation, but the Hebrew itself. And when you do that, the measurements, the width, the length, the height, it all fits perfectly. And so what I'm talking about is the Ron Wyatt discovery. He discovered it in 1988, and I spoke to him in 1998. He died the year later. I just want to know if this is real, or is he just making it up?
Right, right.
Because he also found Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia.
Now, wasn't this kind of first seen by some sort of military pilot or something? He was looking
Yeah.
down.
So they took an aerial survey of some, I don't know, yeah, some military pilot took an aerial survey of it, and that's where it was seen. So I remember seeing this back in wasn't high school, but is it 1988 that would happen, or is it 70 or 68? I forget which. I remember seeing something about it in high school. I thought that was kind of strange and cool, and then forgot about it. And then years later, it came up in the news again, and I started to look at it, and I said, I would really like to go there. But I had a mortgage, 2 kids, car payments, new career. There's no way I could ever afford to do that. And besides, my wife wanted to go to Florida. So it was not in our plans.
Hmm.
But then when things started to change for me in 2005, and I began to teach about the Jubilee cycles, I realized that there was an opportunity to go to Mount Ararat. It was a little bit scary, a little bit dangerous. And I thought, you know what? I might not live forever. I think I will, but I don't, live like we all do. I'm going to go. So in 2007, I bit the bullet and went. And it was just so surreal. The anchor stones with the holes through them, the way they were carved, the way they got a place for the knot in the middle.
Well, wasn't there
Uh,
like a cross as well engraved in some of these?
so during the Byzantine era, they put crosses on them, and they put 8 crosses to represent the 8 people.
Oh
So
man, it's kind of
you
cool.
know, it's petrified wood. The stones aren't, but the stones are still there, and they're uniformly similar. Different places, all but in the same area. So the speculation is, and nobody knows for sure, that they cut the rope so that the ark would blow into this um, bay and land. And the place where it landed, um, the ridge that it was right beside was the exact right height to get off the ark. Anyway, it's just everything's amazing. Then the mudslide slid down years later and it got pierced on the side. People speculate that's supposed to represent Yeshua being pierced in his side. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But when I started to investigate it, all the descriptions for every nationality told you where it was. It's a mountains, plural, mountains, like a mountain range. If I said the Appalachians, where are you guys?
I'm in Florida.
So you know what the Appalachians are?
Yes. Hmm.
What state are the Appalachians in?
Well, it's a few states, right? It's something that
Right.
runs, south to north up on
So
the
the
east.
mountains of Ararat is a mountain range. It's not one mountain. What is called Mount Ararat today wasn't there when Noah was there. It's a volcano that's getting higher and higher. And in the last, I don't know, 1,000 years, there's what is called Little Mount Ararat. It's coming up beside it, and it's getting bigger as well. Now, people are searching Mount Ararat for Noah's Ark, and they claim they found it. And if you investigate those claims, you'll find out that they're all bogus. As long as we got a business or industry to go search for the mountain, we have a job. So let's keep searching for it, but let's never find it. So we go to Mount Ararat. But across the valley from Mount Ararat is the mountains or mountain range called the Mountains of Ararat. And that's also the Mount Judy, and I can't remember all the other names, but there's 3 mountains in that area that are in folklore around Noah's Ark, and they're still called that today. The very first city after Noah's flood is still there. The second city is the one they're living in now. So even the names of the people that are there, again, I wasn't planning to talk on this, so I'd have to read my notes. But if you go to sightedmoon.com, among some of my first notes are, or first records, or the first year, is the articles about Noah's Ark. There's 5 articles describing the length, the width, and the height. What that means, it's not like it's not a measuring tape that you measure out. It's a shipbuilder's calculation. So it's a ship is described in volume. So how do you describe a volume of a ship? Because it's tapered. So that's how Noah's Ark is described. And those measurements in the Bible fit exactly this object that's there now. So it's petrified. Now, in the early 1900s, somebody went up there and blew a hole in the side of it with dynamite to see if there's a cavity inside that they could go to. I climbed up there, and I used to work construction, and that smells like pitch, which is another way of saying asphalt. In your Bible, the word pitch is sometimes translated as asphalt. So I'm up in that hole and I'm smelling this asphalt all around me. And I'm wondering, what am I smelling? So I pulled a stone out of the roof and pulled it down, and I smelled it. And it smelled just like asphalt. Wow, isn't that strange? So I took a bunch of stones, put them in a bag, brought them home. Years later, I could still smell the asphalt. On top of Noah's Ark was also supposed to be covered with pitch. Pitch within, pitch without is what it says in your Bible. And the pitch without, I was trying to understand that. If you had to have asphalt or that smell of asphalt around you, you'd suffocate. It's I kind of like it from work, but paving roads. But to live with it for a year he was inside the ark, it would kill you. What is the pitch without? There's another pitch. It's also called slime. It's the same thing that you put on the side of your house. It's called plaster. Now, Noah's Ark was described as what I think the Assyrians described it as a Easter, like an egg, a giant egg inside a basket. How do you, and the Indians also described it as the stone boat. How do you get a stone boat to float? Well, it was also made out of reeds, bulrushes. So in Iraq today, they take these bulrushes and they make giant churches out of them. And you've seen it in the news during the Iraq War many years ago. It's the same type of thing. You could build a giant ark out of those bulrushes, and they still use that technology in South America. I forget where. I want to say Peru, but I'm not sure. They still use that technology today. And the pitch beneath is the asphalt plastered on the bottom of the boat, and the pitch above, or the slime above, is like on the side of your house, the drywall, or not drywall, but the plaster of, not plaster of Paris, the plaster on the side of your basement wall. That. So on top of the ark,
almost like a stucco, maybe.
you could say a stucco.
Okay.
So on top of the ark, we got up on top, we walked around, we measured it. There are ribs that are petrified, and they stand out. They're black now. The rest of it is not petrified wood. It's petrified, it's stone, because it's replaced these bulrushes with stone. But on top is all these little chips of what I thought was plaster. And I couldn't figure out what it was, but it was everywhere on top of the ark. I discovered a soccer ball, a piece of rock about the size of a soccer ball, which was petrified wood on the side of the ark. It had rolled down, and half of it was still covered in this plaster. And then I started to realize what I was looking at. The ark was plastered. And when I came home, I did a whole bunch more research and looking up the Assyrian words and what they meant. And so it's the word is kafar, Kaphr. That's how it sounds. That's how you pronounce it. Kaphar, kafar. And that sounds just like our word cover. It's also where we get the word atonement from, to cover our sins. And this covering was over top of Noah's Ark. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff there that I discovered. I'm ready to go back. In our assembly, there's one other person who's been to Noah's Ark, and there's four of us, four of us who have been to Mount Sinai. So
Yeah, that one blew
considering,
me away, man, because on Google Earth you can actually go in certain areas and we're supposedly just down from Mount Sinai, right? Is where the altar, right? The altar where they were they were worshiping the golden calf, right? And you can see some etchings on this altar, and the government of Saudi Arabia actually took it over. They fenced it in,
yeah,
and they've limited it to certain people that can go inside of it. I'm not saying no one can go inside, but it's secured.
they have a sign up there, and they've opened the gate, so everybody goes in. You're not going to travel all the way to Saudi Arabia and not go in and see this and take a picture outside the fence. So everyone goes in. There's another fence at the base of Mount Sinai to keep you from climbing up Mount Sinai. It's been Jehovah God has pushed the flood down and washed all the dirt on top of the fence, so you can't even see it now. You just go up. So anyway, it's pretty cool. Yes, the golden calf altar is there, and yes, there are etchings on all around the altar showing you the God that they were worshiping. Now, the reason I say Jehovah God, to distinguish from the other God with a small g, from our God with a big G, which just sounds weird when it says, so I call him Jehovah. The God that they were worshiping was called Apis or Api. And Happy or Api is also the god of the Nile, one of the gods that Jehovah God destroyed with the turning the Nile to blood. Anyway, so yes, that is there. You can see it from Google Earth, and you can also see the spot where we suspect Moses ground the golden calf back to powder. And he took it over to the stream where they got all the water, poured it in the water, and made them drink it. That happens to be a curse that's found in Numbers chapter 5, where you take you suspect your wife has committed adultery. So you take her to the priest, you write out all the curses, and you rub those curses out, pour them into this cup, and make her drink the cup, and you put some of the dust from the temple floor in the cup, make them drink it. That's what Moses was acting out here. It's the curse of the Sota woman. Sota means in Hebrew, you won't find it in English, but it's the woman who's gone astray. Israel had gone astray, worshiping this other god. So all that stuff is right there. Beside this mountain, I think it's on the north side. Got to get turned around there. On the north side is a grave or a graveyard with about 3,000 graves in it.
What?
Yeah, what? And guess what? Why do we think it's a grave? Because when you see a field of stones, they're usually helter-skelter. They're all over the place. But here you can see it like if you go to a cemetery today, you'll see some of the older spots. The plots are marked out in concrete, right? They're marked out and they're square or rectangular. And then they have a stone as a headstone. Well, over here at Mount Sinai, they have plots marked out in a rectangular shape, or a little bit bigger for a family plot. And then they have a stone standing up there. I could not find any etchings or carvings in the stone, but it's a headstone standing up, and they're everywhere. Some of the graves are heaped up like a pile of stones on top. You know, why are they there in the middle of the desert? And no one else knows what they're there. But the Saudi government also fenced off the graveyard.
Oh, okay, because they know what they know. Come on.
Yeah, yeah. So when you get ready to, there's a place where we park at the base, and where you park there, there's it's almost like a, I don't know, 8 by 10 piece of rock, flat, and on it are all these etchings of Apis. So the golden calf altar is about maybe a mile away from this spot, and I can see, and so yeah, if I'm standing beside where this etching is, and it's not just a little, it's a huge etching, you can't miss it. Behind me at the base of the mountain is the altar, and the thing that Moses built for the animals coming to be sacrificed, like a chute. And you can see Moses coming down the mountain. Joshua saying it sounds like there's a war. Moses going up this ridge, seeing these etchings. The people are still about a mile away, or the people are all around it, but the people are about a mile away. But then he sees the etchings of Apis here beside him. And I can see him blowing a gasket right here. Because when I was there, I got pissed off. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah,
I got really mad. I
yeah.
got really mad because they just crossed the Red Sea. We saw the Red Sea crossing. We saw, the canyon they came through on Egypt's side. We saw the big river, the wide riverbed on this side. We've seen, the not just Ron Wise, but other people have gone down through the Red Sea and seen the chariots down there. They saw that. They saw the 70 wells. We saw that. The water. We see all these miracles. You see God on the top of the mountain. You hear his voice talking to Moses. And what's the very first thing you do when Moses goes up the mountain to get the 10 commandments, the contract of our marriage? Let's make a god out of gold, just like the one we had in Egypt called Apis, and let's start worshiping him. And then they put this giant sign right where Moses is going to come down, walk by, of Apis and Hathor. So Hathor is the female god, and she's more worshipped than Apis is. But that's what Moses sees. I got mad when I saw it,
Mhm.
and we still do it today.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting how God's people tend to always not revolt. That's not the right word for it, but they turn away from God and they end up worshiping this familiar spirit, this counterfeit spirit that is very similar or comes off similar to being God's Holy Spirit, but really it's Mystery Babylon, man. I mean, the world
Yeah,
constantly turns away from God and starts to venture off into Mystery Babylon. I mean, especially when you said, right? You said that there was a goddess that they actually worshipped more than the other one. Well, that's kind of like where we get the idea from with Nimrod and Semiramis and
that's
Tammuz and
exactly what it is. So Nimrod and Semiramis are these two gods, but Nimrod and Semiramis go way back to what? So that's maybe 1,000 years before that, 1,300. Yeah, maybe 1,000 years before Moses, roughly. I'm guessing that's where it started. It started right after Noah's Ark. Those people there came down, began to formulate these ideas that have grown into Assyria, then formulated into Babylon, then the Babylon into the Chaldeans to the Romans and the Greeks, and but along the way, in between there, at the same time as Babylon, were the gods of Egypt,
Mhm.
and the gods of Egypt got exported everywhere as well. And there are two gods. There's the God the Father, then there's the God the Mother. She's the more important God because she gave birth to God the Son. Does that sound familiar? And we have this trilogy or trinity in every single religion around the world. And it started before Babylon, started with the Assyrian, before the Assyrians. It started back at Noah's Ark. That's what they painted on these walls, Hathor and Apis, and the son of Hathor and Apis sucking on the teat of Hathor. That's the Trinity right there. And we still do it to this day. And yet people don't clue in because, we're very smart. We're 20th century. We're smarter than God, Jehovah God. Make sure I get the right one. And we know better. Well, no, you don't. No, you do not. If you look around the world right now, Russia and the former president of Russia said that, we can nuke the United States if they send these tomahawks to Ukraine. Because a tomahawk can carry a nuclear device as well as an exploding device, and you can't tell the difference when it's launched. Once it's launched, they're going to assume that it's nuclear, and they will retaliate because the only one that has a tomahawk are the Americans. That's how close we are to the end of this age.
Right.
The wrong decision will lead to a nuclear attack.
Yeah.
If just let me say this, if we've got peace with the Gaza Accord, or whatever you want to call whatever was signed yesterday in Sharm el-Sheikh by all these Arab nations and Trump and some other Western nations, peace in our time, peace, historical peace, nothing like this for 3,000 years, peace. And Thessalonians, it says, I think it's verse 3, when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes. Are we there? Is that where we are right now? This is the thing I'm wrestling with. I know where we are in the chronology, but where does that fit into this chronology? It's very close to my understanding, but is that what I'm looking for, or is there something else to come? Because Hamas isn't laying down their arms. Israel will go back in, and they will get those 20 or whatever, 16 bodies that are left, 20 bodies left. They will get them. And like Trump says, you can do this the easy way or do it the hard way, but it's going to get done. So we're not there yet, but we are so close.
Right. It's almost like we're on the edge,
Yes.
or they're at least like constantly, precursor after precursor after precursor until it actually is that time of prophecy. And it's I think right now the world may not be ready yet. I think they really have to seduce more people into this mystery Babylon, if that makes any sense. Which I do think there is a movement towards that, especially after the Charlie Kirk incident. And this is the thing, right? I heard Trump the other day, or it could have been yesterday or the day before, but he was basically giving thanks. By the way, this was like at a Jewish forum, right? And he's giving thanks to his daughter Ivanka and her husband for sharing the faith of the Jewish faith with him, because she converted from Christianity to the Jewish faith.
Yep.
And now here's the thing. This is where it gets kind of weird, and people need to start waking up and opening up their eyes to what's actually going on, because Trump was just at the Charlie Kirk funeral, and this was supposedly a very big awakening, a very big Christian congregation, right? A Christian revolution, of
They're
America.
trying to make it into a revival.
Well, look, and yes, I agree with you. But when you see how they, and again, look, this isn't against Erica Kirk, but how they exalted her is like lifting back up Semiramis, after the fall of Nimrod, and they're bringing in like this divine feminine back in, and the whole church seems to be, not the whole church, right? Because that's kind of big, but at least these kinds of Christians, the new apostolic, Reformation and the seven mountain mandate Christians, where they're I think they're worshiping a false Holy Spirit, and I think it's the divine goddess. If that makes any sense.
I understand what you're saying. I would not liken Erica Kirk to a goddess at all, um, or that they're trying to make her like that. The Babylonian system has already been in place, and everyone's already been deceived by it. And if we go down that road, that's a whole other episode that we are going to have to come back and explore,
Okay.
because we do talk, like I do explain this in my book called The 10 Days of Awe. It's about 800 pages. I touch on it in my other book called The 2300 Days of Hell. And I'm showing you why is Jehovah God so angry? Most Christians say, well, I don't want to deal with the angry God. I want the loving, kind, gentle God of the New Testament. But it's the same God. They don't realize that they're doing the same things that made them angry in the first place. And everyone says, well, it's somebody else. You mentioned something a little bit ago. Um, Jesus, I call him Yeshua because he had a Hebrew name called Yeshua. He was Jewish. He kept the Jewish laws, and he didn't break any of them. If he did, he wouldn't be our Messiah. But he did all the laws and obeyed them. So if are you going to obey God, or are you going to obey your church or your denomination? Which denomination is ruling in heaven? Is it the Anglican Church? Maybe. Is it the Catholic Church? Are those the rules that apply in heaven? Which rules apply in heaven? Where do we get our rules from in the first place? It's called your Bible. Who gets to choose which rules apply? You or me? Or, well, maybe those guys over there because they're in the right church. We got to join that church in order to get to heaven. Again, it's all stupidity. Am I allowed to say that? I'm told I'm not supposed to call people stupid, but they are. They just plain are stupid. If you think that your church, whatever that is the one that's going to be in heaven and everyone else is going to hell, then you're an idiot, because God did not make churches. He made his Bible, and he gave it to you, and he said, read it. Then once you've read it, obey it. It's that simple. But no, all our church is telling us all the stuff that only we can do because we are that church. Anyway, I don't belong to a church. I used to belong to a number of them. I now belong to God, and I read his Bible, and I do what he says.
Yeah.
Which, because I did that, so that was my test in 2005. Are you going to obey me? I didn't want to. I wanted to continue with my church, what my church was doing, which was different than what God was showing me. And I was in a good church. But when I obeyed him that day, I was shown the sabbatical and jubilee cycles. So that's when I started to learn when they were. I only had 11 proofs at the time, and they all just fell in my lap, and there they are. And I lined them up, and I could now know when every sabbatical and jubilee year was in history with just those 11. What I didn't know was where we were in that chronology. And again, I challenge your listeners, prove what I'm about to say false or true, but don't sit there and do nothing, which means you got to get out a pencil and paper, take some notes now, go to sightedmoon.com. The articles are there. They're free on our website, or you can get the books from Amazon. But prove this stuff. Prove it true or prove it false. Once you do, it's no longer Joe Dumond's teaching or Sighted Moon's teaching. It's now your teaching. It's now something that you've learned directly from God.
So how do we approach this? Because it's there's many different timelines out there, right? So is this something that you've taken a certain timeline from, like a template, or is this something just from scratch?
So before 2005, I was asking when are the sabbatical and jubilee years. I asked my pastors, nobody knew. I began to search on them. The internet was just starting to get publish everything. Again, I'm in the dinosaur age when we used to have to go to a library to get information. Now you just click on your iPhone. That's such an amazing thing. So I started to search for this stuff, and there's all kinds of chronologies. There's all kinds of calculations, and everyone does the same thing. They, they start doing the Genesis account. They add them all up. Then they get to the Exodus, and they add 480 years from First Kings, and then they do the chronology down to here, and then it doesn't work. Or they've made a mistake along the way, or they start using Septuagint, which has got thousands years, puts us into the 7,600 year time period. We've got Usher as 4,000 years BC. We got other guys at 300 or 3,900 and 4,500. And which one is right? If you go through them all, it'll just give you a big headache. How do you figure it out? And so here's the proof. How do you figure it out? You go not to Genesis, you go to 2 Kings 19:29. In 2 Kings 19:29, it says, now Hezekiah is about to be attacked by the Assyrians. He's about to be destroyed. He's about to be killed. And he takes the letter that the general gave him and he puts it in the temple and says to God, what do I do? So God doesn't say, don't worry, have a good night's sleep. I'll take care of it in the morning. Because the next morning, 180,000 Assyrians were killed. Sennacherib is fighting in Lachish. He then goes off to fight the Egyptians who are coming up to help. So the Assyrians are super strong. They can take out Jerusalem and no problem. But God didn't say that I'll take care of it. What he says is, this year you shall eat what grows of itself. Next year you shall eat what grows of the same. And in the third year you will plant and harvest and eat. What kind of an answer is that? Hezekiah knew what the answer was. He's now been given 3 more years of life. But the answer wasn't for Hezekiah. The answer that was given was for us today. That verse was specifically for us in these last days, because that year that happened is the most undisputed year in chronology. Sennacherib came against Hezekiah in the year 701 BC. And when he got his butt whooped and he lost 180,000 men, he went back and he wrote on a stele, and we have 4 of them in 4 different museums around the world. He wrote on that stele that he caged up Hezekiah like a bird in a cage, and he got all this tribute from him. And that's also recorded in the Bible. So we got the stele saying the same thing the Bible does. The Bible doesn't give us a year, but the stele does. And when you look at that year, it doesn't tell you what year it is precisely. It tells you that in the year of this king, this event happened. But it gives you 900 or 600 years of kings and when they reigned. I think it's the year 763 BC. It recorded a solar eclipse over top of Nineveh. So in the 1880s, this archaeologist goes back and he researches what year that took place. You can calculate that. We can now do it with NASA. When you got the year, he now knew exactly what year Sennacherib came against Hezekiah. If it wasn't for that dating on the stele, then we would not know when any of the Israelite kings reigned, because we have no other record to compare it to. There's another record on another stele of Ahab fighting against another king. I want to say Tiglath-Pileser, but I forget who it was. And that happened in 853 BC. We've now got 701 BC and 853 BC, and now we've got a known chronology, or a known historical chronology, that we can compare the Israelite kings to. And because of that, we can now know when each king reigned in Israel, because of these 2 dates. But one of them is 701 BC, and that happens to be 2 Kings 19, verse 29. When do you have a year when you don't plant and another year when you don't plant back to back? That's the 49th year and the 50th year of a Jubilee cycle. In the third year, you can go plant and sow and harvest. So 701 would be the 49th year, and 700 would be the 50th year. If you count by sevens from 701 BC, you will hit all of the other 11 dates that I had at the time. I've now got 63 sabbatical year dates, and every one of them lines up with 701 BC. That's a confirmed date that Jehovah God gave us in the Bible. If we count by 49, not 50, and I'll tell you how to prove this in a moment. If you count by 49 from 700 BC, you'll hit every Jubilee throughout history going forward and backward in time. Given to you by God, not man, not anybody else, not Joe Dumond, nobody. This is from God himself. You now have two dates. You can know when every sabbatical year was and every Jubilee year was. It's in the Second Kings, and it's in the chronology dating down to our time, because the Assyrian king list ties into Ptolemy's chronology, which ties into the Roman chronology, and that ties into our chronology today. Once you have that, you've now got part of an equation. What you have to figure out is the Genesis and where Genesis fits into our chronology.
Right. We're trying to
So
put these two puzzle pieces together here.
that's right. It's just a math equation. A plus B equals C.
Right.
So that's what I've done. So again, we've got, I don't want to kill your audience with math here today, because
No,
math,
it's
they want to
fascinating.
start rolling
So,
their eyes.
how about this? So, let's talk about a Jubilee. Like, where would you start describing what that is?
So Leviticus 25 is where you go.
Hmm.
Again, you can go and read everybody's opinion, but stop doing that. Opinions don't count for anything. Go and read Leviticus 25. There's where it tells you what a Jubilee year is. It says every 50th year is a Jubilee. Now, is that correct? Is that understanding? Yes, it's the 50th year, but it's 49 plus 1. So that the 77777 cycle never gets broken. It doesn't go 777, then 8, then start counting 7 again. And that's what most people do when they start counting Jubilees. They count 50, 50, 50, and that's where they make the first mistake. It's 49 plus 1. How do you prove this? You have to match up each of the sabbatical years. So in 2005, I only had the one, 2 Kings 1929. And then I discovered that same time, the Leviticus 25:2 was also talking about a Jubilee year. So when I lined up those two Jubilee years, and I just did an Excel program, first of all, I counted by 50. When you count by 50 from 700 BC, excuse me, when you count by 50 from 700 BC, none of the other sabbatical years line up with it. So that's your first clue that something's wrong. When you count by 49s, all the sabbatical years lined up. So when I go back in time to Leviticus 25:2, which is when they cross over the Jordan River, and I can line that up by counting by 49s, I now got a match. So now I've got A plus B. Now I know what C is, and C is Genesis 6:3. I shall not strive with man forever, for his time will be 120 Shana. The word Shana is often translated years, but it also can be translated as cycles of time. Most people think that's given Noah, because Noah's not even mentioned yet, but they think it's giving Noah 120 years to preach the gospel. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about mankind, Adam, mankind. I'll give Adam, or mankind, 120 cycles of time to figure this stuff out. That's the end of their time. So most Christians go 120 times 50, they get 6,000 years. And they say we're near the end of the 6,000 years. But where, they don't know exactly. Agree. But it's not 120 times 50, it's 120 times 49, which gives you 5,880 years. Now you got A plus B equals C, C being the 5,880. You put that together, where are we? We're in the year 5,861. That means that from the time from today in 2025, when this is being recorded, until the seventh millennium begins. The seventh millennium of rest is what, 19 years? Is that math right? 2045 to 2025?
It's in my lifetime, brother.
Yeah, it's
You know?
in within my lifetime, and I'm old.
So
Yes,
this is so basically kind of like what you're saying is we have 19 years left till the wrath of God, or the rapture, tribulation. Where do you sit with that?
we have 19 years left until the beginning of the seventh millennium. You want to talk about the rapture? We have a different number of years for that. You want to talk about the time the Messiah comes? We got a different time for that. Because Jesus also said, unless those days are cut short, no flesh will be saved alive. How much time has been cut short? The answer is found in Luke, I think Luke 17, where it says, as it was in the days of Noah. As it was in the days of Noah. So you see, my chronology is much different than Asher and everyone else, going backwards, trying to calculate going back in time. I start in the middle and just do a math equation, find out where the beginning is, and just there we go. Now you got it all figured out.
Right, right.
So in Luke, it says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the last days. So the question is, what was it like in the days of Noah? Well, everybody was bad. Really? What were they doing that was so bad? It says they were eating and they were drinking and giving in marriage. Are you married, Steve?
Yes.
So you're a bad person now.
Well, it also says violence, right? There was a lot of violence in those days.
I don't think it does say that. If you, I don't have my Bible handy, but if you want to
Let's
pull it
see,
out, I
pull
don't
it
think
up.
it says violence. It says, it continues on and says, as it was in the days of Lot, so shall it be in the last days. They were eating and drinking, giving in marriage, and doing business. You've done business. I think you eat. You look very healthy. I think you've been drinking. I got a cup of water here beside me. Does that make us evil? No. What is this telling you? We assume that Sodom and Gomorrah was evil. That's why, well, we assume that, not assume that, we learn that in other places. That's why it was destroyed. We assume that they were bad before Noah because that's why they were all destroyed. But in this verse in 17, chapter 17 of Luke, it doesn't say because of their evil. So if we go and look at the Jubilee cycle, because now we've done the chronology from Adam all the way up to our time now, and we've got it on the, you do it on an Excel program. So on my website, I've got the chart. You can order the charts and you can have it for yourself. I've also got videos where I'm showing you the videos in full-size banners. But you start to count them and you realize when you get to Noah, Noah flood took place in the fourth year of the sixth sabbatical cycle. Okay, what does that? It doesn't mean anything until you look at the Lot, and Lot's destruction took place in the third year of the sixth sabbatical cycle. Well, that's kind of interesting. But then there's one more that I found. Joseph's 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine also took place. The end of the 7 years of famine took place in the third year of the sixth sabbatical cycle. So I got three things going on here, or three Jubilee cycles, all showing me that in the sixth sabbatical cycle, so each cycle is 7 years, and we're in the fifth one ourselves right now. In the sixth one, in the third and fourth year of those cycles is when judgment took place for Noah, judgment took place for Lot, and judgment took place for Egypt with the 7 years of famine. Now I got a pattern that I'm following. And when I compare those three Jubilee cycles to our Jubilee cycle, the one we're in now, I see another pattern. So that third year of the sixth sabbatical cycle is the year 2033. Interesting, but what does that mean? So, right, like, how do you, what are you being shown here, Joe? What are you trying to tell us? Jesus, Yeshua, died in every detail according to the Passover ceremony. Every detail. He was selected on the 10th day, the same as the lamb is selected on the 10th day. He was brought into Mary and Martha's home, and they're examined by the people for those 4 days. And then at the end of those 4 days, on the 14th, he's killed, and he dies. The lamb is killed at 3 in the afternoon, the same time Yeshua is killed or dies.
Hmm.
He tells you in, when he's on the cross, he's telling you certain clues. If you look up those clues, Psalm 22 is a one clue. Isaiah 53 is another clue. Things that he speaks that they know, excuse me, when he said that, that ties right back into those chapters to go and read. And when you read them, you see everything that is going on around him at that time. So every detail of Passover, Yeshua fulfilled. But he's coming back again. That's what we're all waiting for. He's coming back. When? So the minute anyone says a date, now I didn't start off trying to figure out a date. All I wanted to know is when this is about in Jubilee years. That was my question. Nobody knew the answer. And then all of a sudden I found it. When are the Sabbatic Jubilee years? When you understand that and you start to plot this all out, the dates jump off the page. Well, nobody can know the day or the hour. Therefore, because Jesus said that, you're a false prophet. Actually, you know what? If you listen to what you just said, that shows you that you're not obeying God and that you're in danger of being one of the 5 foolish virgins. Because Jesus said that because he was telling you the very day he was coming back. So if you go to the Mishnah or you go to the Temple Institute today and you look up Rosh Hashanah, and in the Mishnah you look up Rosh Hashanah 2b, I think it is, it's talking about them having witnesses come to sight the moon. We sight the moon to begin each month. So we can't declare the month started until we have these 2 witnesses. So they wait, people come, and the high priest takes them into his office and he asks them a bunch of questions. They're interrogated. Is it this moon? He's got it upside down. Is it this moon? It's looking the wrong way. Is it this moon? And he shows them a whole bunch of different pictures. When he points at the right moon for a crescent moon at that time of year, and he has 2 people that identify the same moon, then he goes out to the porch of the of hewn stones, and he stands there on the steps and he blows the shofar with 2 silver trumpets. And all the people are out there. All the people are there waiting. Is this it? Is this it? They don't know. We're waiting. And he declares, the high priest declares, this is the day is hallowed. That's what he shouts out. The day is hallowed. And all the people shout back, the day is hallowed. They blow the shofar. He says again, the day is hallowed. All the people shout back, the day is hallowed. And they all get excited because now they didn't know that this holy day was now about to begin. Then they send messengers on horses. And it's just like Paul Revere going from city to city, announcing that the day is hallowed. And then other messengers go off to other cities. Then they light a bonfire on the Mount of Olives. And that bonfire on the Mount of Olives is lit up and seen on another mount, and then it's lit up, and it goes all the way to the diaspora and to Babylon in a matter of less than an hour. Everyone doesn't know if this is the day of the Feast of Trumpets. It's the only feast that we have in there are 7 feasts, and this one's in the fall, and this one is about the coming of the Messiah. It shows you the day he was born.
Yeah. So you're familiar, right, with the most recent kind of date setting that was done by this prophet from
Africa?
yes,
Yes,
and
we were supposed to, I
it was
think September
September
23rd.
23rd.
Yes.
September 23rd. And we've seen this date in a lot of movies, a lot of predictive programming, especially it's 22 through 25. And, 23 being the most common, predictive programming number with a 9 in front of it or behind it, in movies, Hollywood, and all this kind of stuff. What are your thoughts with that whole ordeal?
If you want to guess, go ahead. That's as good a guess as any. So was September 17th a few years ago in 2017. It's another guess. Why are they doing this? Because they don't obey God. When's the rapture going to take place? Well, it could be any day now. No, it can't be. It'll be taking place on one specific day. How do you know that, Joe? Well, because you got to know the holy days. If you don't know the holy days, then you're just guessing. When Christianity walked away from the Ten Commandments, basically the fourth commandment, saying they don't have to do it no more and it's done away, they basically cut off their left and right hand as to know the salvation plan of God. That plan of God is revealed in those holy days. And those holy days only work when you have the Jubilee cycles to show you the pattern. That's what has happened to me. There's more, there's Daniel 9 prophecy that ties in there as well. And that was sealed until the last days. All this stuff points to this understanding. Yes, that guy may have picked up a little bit about the Feast of Trumpets. Some of your people may pick up about the Feast of Trumpets, and they're going to start guessing about the Feast of Trumpets from every year from now on. But it's still guesswork
Yeah, I
because
think
they don't
something like
understand.
this is I think something like this may bring on what the Bible talks about, especially in the end days, where there would be scoffers, right? There'd be people that would be mocking Christians. Where's your God? Haven't you been,
Yeah,
saying, your God is to come, and where is it? And I think that is one of the issues that we just generally may face with, setting dates. And,
but
I personally think that, we are to be, children of the light, and to be sober, and to watch for these certain things unfold so that we can
but
see
here's the
these
thing:
things,
if you're watching, what are you watching for?
signs,
What signs, though?
Matthew 24, Revelation chapter 6. There's all kinds of things that you could probably look for.
So the watchmen, which is what we're talking about, those are the two witnesses. Those two witnesses in the book of Revelation are the watchmen. What are the two witnesses looking for? The two witnesses are looking for the crescent moon that we were just talking about. It's written in the Mishnah. It's how Jesus determined the beginning of each month. The day and hour no man knows is the day called the Feast of Trumpets. It comes at a day and hour nobody knows. It can be either today or tomorrow. It's going to be one of those 2 days. It's going to be today or tomorrow, depending if we have two witnesses sight the moon. If we don't have two witnesses, then it's tomorrow. And we got ready today for nothing. It's a day and hour nobody knows, because the feast day, the Feast of Trumpets, begins with the first sighting of the crescent moon. Then we got to wait till the two witnesses testify, and then we got to wait for the high priest to come out. Then we got to wait for the messengers to reach our city, or the fires to reach us in Babylon. Nobody knows, and we're standing there in anticipation, waiting. But we know the Feast of Trumpets is when he comes, because that's also the day when he was born. He wasn't born December 25th. He was born on the Feast of Trumpets. And the Feast of Trumpets that year happened to be September 11th, 3 BC.
You know what I found out the other day? Well, actually today I researched it, and Mitra, right? This is like the avatar, the Avatara of, basically, it's like Tammuz, right? Of
Hmm.
Nimrod. So he was born on December 25th, or they
Yes,
celebrated his birthday on December 25th. Okay, so there's so much
December.
paganism that's wrapped up in this world, and the same mystery Babylonian religion has infiltrated Christianity, or they've kind of like blended Christianity into mystery Babylon, if that makes any
It's a
sense.
mixture of the two. You're right. And if you read Alexander Hislop's Two Babylons, you'll get a lot of that information.
I have it
If
coming
you
in, actually. I'm excited to get into
read
it.
it and then get me back on, and let's talk about it, because he's brilliant. And then we can go down. If we explore that, your audience is going to be shocked and stunned.
At how much actually we are seeing in our world today that is worshiping mystery Babylon. I personally think
Yes,
the Catholic Church is at the highest of the hierarchy of the other mystery Babylon religions, which I think are all. It's what Madame Blavatsky, kind of talked about with theosophy. It's where all the religions, have one little piece of it right, but they're all one. And I think that that's kind of like what Satan's done over time, is where he's broken off, mystery Babylon into all the nations of the world, and they each are worshiping their own mystery Babylon. But me personally, I think the Catholic Church is at the top. It's like
they're
super
not the top.
obvious.
The Egyptian gods, we talk about Apis and Hathor,
Hmm.
They're at the top. Catholicism came out of that. And all the
Right.
Protestant churches came out of Catholicism. But then there's also the Hindu religion. It also came out of
Right.
Egypt. It came directly out of
Well, I
Egypt.
guess that when I mean at the top, it's like the most current, if that makes
Well,
sense, maybe.
If you're Hindu, the Sikh religion is most current, right?
Sure.
So like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
And
every religion
Eastern
around the world.
mysticism is like wild.
Buddhism has a trinity, and they came out of Hinduism. Hindu comes out of Egypt. Catholicism comes out of Egypt. It's all connected. And that would be a great subject for another day.
Okay. Okay. Oh,
In on my
I wanted to.
what
So
just before
I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
in my if you go to the store or Amazon, look up "It's a riddle, not a command." It's a riddle, not a command. That explains what I just explained to you about the Feast of Trumpets and what Yeshua meant when he said nobody knows the day or the hour. He's talking about the Feast of Trumpets. Paul says, "You are not ignorant, brethren, of the seasons. You know when the Messiah is coming." We know the season. It's the fall holy day season, which is exactly every detail of the fall holy days describes to you how he's coming back, how this is going to end, the same way Passover described how he was going to die. So there's another, from the Feast of Trumpets until the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, is what is called the 10 days of awe. Those 10 days, again, that's what my name of that one book is. That's what we're in right now. We're in the second year, a day for a year in prophecy, the second year of those 10 days of awe. At the end of those 10 days, that's when Satan will be locked away. That's what takes place on the Day of Atonement. That's what takes place in Revelation 20. He's locked away for the seventh millennium. But before that, all hell's coming. All hell and busloads of it, because he will not let anybody survive. Unless those days are cut short, no flesh will be saved alive. So if he's locked away in 2033, that means the tribulation begins 3.5 years before that. That means that starts at Passover in 2030. Remember, we said 2045, the start of the seventh millennium. So now it's just got a little bit close. That's 5 years from now. But there's more. Before the tribulation begins, the two witnesses work for 3.5 years. And they don't have any rain on the earth. That's famine. 3.5 years from 2030 brings you to 2026. That's next year.
What do you think it's going to look like with the two witnesses on Earth?
Um, Probably the same way it looked like with John the Baptist or with Elijah and Elisha, or even with Moses. Nobody recognized them. Nobody respected them. Nobody believed that they were anybody until after the fact, until after it was too late.
Now they're to be doing miracles, right, and signs and wonders and all this kind of
Yep.
stuff. Right.
But what did Jesus say? Jesus said, surely before he comes, Elijah must come first. Elijah, that's often equated with the two witnesses. And he said, and he would restore all things. Nobody's looking for Elijah. They're all looking for the rapture. They're all looking for to be raptured out. Nobody's looking for the Elijah. If Elijah's here, if we are actually that close to the end, where's Elijah? What is he supposed to be doing? Restoring all things. What are those all things that must be restored? When you find that answer, you will find Elijah. But you got to know what you're looking for. What's been done away with? Why doesn't Christianity understand these things? Because they don't keep the holy days. So there's a first thing that's got to be restored, the holy days. What's another thing? The holy days at the proper time. If the holy days are according to the Hillel calendar, which was created in 358 AD, why did they have to create it then? What calendar was Jesus keeping 300 years before that? 330 years before that? It's a different calendar, similar but different. Is it the Enoch calendar? Is it the Zadok calendar? Is it the lunar Sabbath calendar? Or is it some other asinine calendar that people make up in their brain and just reinvent it here in the last 15, 20 years? There's one calendar that can be traced throughout ancient history, And that's the one the Mishnah talks about, which I just explained. And then after the Mishnah is written, then it gets changed again by Hillel in 358. Then the Mishnah, Torah, incorporates that change later on. That's around the 11th century. So what has to be restored? The calendar, the holy days, sabbatical and jubilee years. Who are the people that are restoring them? When you find those people, you may have found who's going to be the Elijah. But I don't know for sure. But that's the way I see things. So that's one thing that's got to be, those are a bunch of things got to be done. And there's very few people that are doing that. You're muted.
Got
There you go.
myself there. Got myself. Listen, I wanted to circle back real quick back to that verse in Genesis 6, where I was saying that there would be violence in those days. It says, the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So,
Yes.
and this is Genesis 6, verse 11. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this. If Christ is saying that the end days would be like unto the days of Noah, this kind of, at least from people that I've had on, I've Gary Wayne, we've discussed this topic, plus just from my kind of studies and my theological perspective, it's where we will start to see kind of what those days were like, just revisited, just before those times, the end times. The days of Noah will be, revisited in the future. If that makes any sense. Where the
Yeah.
sons of God, the fallen angels, we're talking about a hybrid mixed race of angelic, divine beings and humans, right? Just abominations. And so what's your take with that?
So I don't go down the Nephilim road at all. It's 1, 2 verses in the Bible. My look is what does prophecy say? And yes, the verse you just quoted, there'll be violence in the last day. But that's not what Luke is saying. That's why I left that out on purpose. What does Luke say? And that's what are those things that are happening today? So we're looking at a pattern. Today, I was in Israel on October 7th, 2023. I'd been there over a month because I knew the abomination was about to be set up. This abomination in Christian terms is some great big monster. But in biblical terms, anything that's a false god, like the golden calf, is an abomination. So I used to work construction. I knew that if they're going to build any statue or anything, they'd have a construction site already prepared for it. So I'm there looking for the pre-construction of this abomination. I knew where it was going to be set up. I was almost positive where it was going to be set up. This is based on Daniel 9:24-27. And, it's starts there, but it's also Daniel 12, verse 11, I believe it is. And I knew when that started. That started in with COVID in 2020. It started with the lockdown in Israel. 1,290 days later brings you to October 7th. So I was looking for this place in Israel, and I was blessed to be looking in the wrong place. And I looked in the news that night, all these rockets exploding over us, gunfire breaking out around us. What the heck is going on here? And then you find out about all these people being killed. We didn't know how far Hamas was getting in. We didn't know when Hezbollah was about to attack. There's so much we didn't know at the time, and all these speculations are taking place. But the abomination was set up over top of the Nova Festival tent in Beri, or Riem, sorry. But it was the Buddha statue. There's a statue of a Buddha over top of the tent, and they're all dancing around it. It's Shemini Atzeret. It's the 8th-day Feast of Sukkot. They weren't celebrating Sukkot. They weren't celebrating Shemini Atzeret. They were dancing around having a rave party. And Jehovah answered their dancing with this destruction. Jesus said, when you see the abomination spoken of by Daniel the prophet, flee. At 6:30 that next morning, They've been dancing around all night. They were attacked. They fled, but so many got killed. It also says 1335 days in the next verse. Blessed are those who reach the 1335 day. 1335 day was the day they reached the agreement for the first hostages to be released. So that was November 21st in 2023. I've now got 2 dates confirming my date in 2020. I've been warning people about 2020 since I discovered the Jubilee cycles in 2005. Now it came to pass. Now the abomination has been seen. Now the second part of that, the 1335 days, has been discovered. Then we go to Daniel 8. And Daniel 8 is telling about 2,300 days, starting with the same point from the time the daily is taken away until the temple or the saints will be vindicated. And the word vindicated also means cleansed, is 2,300 days. That brings you to July 12th, 2026. So looking at that date, what's going to happen? It says the temple or the saints will be cleansed. So I look up, I think it's Rambam. He's a Jewish sage. And what does he say about this? Does he have any opinion of what this verse means? And he did. And he says that will be when the 10th red heifer will be sacrificed by the Messiah himself. That will be at the end of the age. I said, well, how did he know that? Where did he get that from? He got it from Malachi 4, verse 2, or Malachi 3, verse 2. And it says in Malachi 3, verse 2, that God is going to cleanse as a refiner's fire and the fuller's soap his people so that Levi can make a proper sacrifice, an acceptable sacrifice to God. What is the only thing that cleanses the Levitical priesthood? The red heifer. So this year, July 8th, they did a practice red heifer.
I know, it's wild.
I was just there in March and I seen them. I seen all 5 of them. 2 of them were disqualified at that time. That meant that they had 3 left.
So where are they getting these red heifers from real quick? Sorry.
They got them from a farm in Texas, and they were brought over by a Christian group, and they were maintained and looked after by the group over there. And as far as I know, they're still there in Shiloh right now. But after they sacrificed that one on July 8th, on August 11th, they said that all the red heifers are now disqualified and they don't have any ready. That doesn't change this prophecy that I just read to you about Daniel 8 and Malachi 3:2. 2,300 days from the time the daily is taken away. That doesn't change. And the only thing that's going to cleanse the Levitical priest to fulfill this is a red heifer. So either they already got that one done, which was, a fake out, or there's another one about to be done that isn't really disqualified. But it's going to be God himself that's going to do it, not any man.
Why do
And
you
this is what
think?
caused the war here in 2023. That's what Hamas said. They attacked Israel because of the red cows. They know
Really?
that the red cows are sacrificed, the red heifers are sacrificed. Then they can begin to build a temple, and they think they're gonna build a temple where the Alaska Mosque is or where the Dome of the Rock is, which means they got to tear down those buildings.
That makes sense.
That's
Okay.
that's why Hamas attacked. That's what they say.
Right, right. Why do you think Christian groups are offering red heifers, or at least they're a part of this process with Israel? I mean, are isn't that kind of like a Christian, like, advocating for the abomination of desolation? I mean, is
Well,
that
if you think that a sacrifice is an abomination, then that's a Christian error or false understanding. Throughout the 7th millennium, they will be sacrificing animals again at the next temple. What does that represent? What does it mean? Every detail of the sacrifice, the animal, different types of animals, to the grain offerings themselves, all of them represent who was our sacrifice. Who was that? We all know that as Yeshua. But we don't recognize him in each of these sacrifices. We just think those are sacrifices of something else. We're not, but that each sacrifice showed you what he was going to do for us instead of
Right.
us having to pay that price ourselves. So that sacrificial system is coming back. Malachi 3:2 tells you it's coming back. There's other verses I don't have them on the top of my head. It's going to be back. David is going to be making sacrifice, where I forget where that is. So Christians need to get this out of their head that there's no more sacrifice because Jesus is the final sacrifice. Yes, that's what it represented. But the people being raised up during the seventh millennium, because there are going to be people born at that time who won't know all this stuff. They need that system to train them to realize what was paid for them. Those that are being brought back to life will need to see this in order to understand that's what it meant. That's what that red heifer, that's what that cow, that's what that bull, that's what that sheep or goat represented. Now I understand. God's teaching us with each sacrifice. And if we dismiss it, we're dismissing his teaching tool for us to learn.
Hmm. I have an interesting perspective, and it kind of turns into a question here for you. So, at least we know the Antichrist will um, suffer from a mortal head wound, right? And there's, in Revelation, at least Revelation 17:8 says, "The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition." And the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth and is of the seven and goeth into perdition. So that's Revelation 17:8 and Revelation 17:11. This plays hand in hand with a lot of um ancient cultures, and just that whole mythology with Nimrod, Semiramis, Tammuz. You've got Osiris. There's this apotheosis ritual. I mean, we even do it every 4 years when we elect a president. There's the dome, the obelisk. When we're electing a president, technically he's dying and he's going down into the bottom of the Capitol building, which is called the George Washington Crypt. And then he's at the end of that, he's ascending up into the apotheosis with the gods, which is at the top of the dome on the inside of it, where you see George Washington with one hand up, one hand down, and he's amongst the rest of the gods. Do you think that this sacrificial process, right, with the red heifers, that this is a part of the Jewish tradition to revisit how they used to do things for atonement of their sins? They're not doing it because they don't have a temple, but when that third temple is built, they'll start doing these things. But do you think that the Antichrist will serve as the ultimate sacrifice, almost like an inverted counterfeit of what Christ did for us, but what the Antichrist does for the other world and the religions that will worship him when he comes out of all this?
So my short answer is no.
Okay.
The longer answer, why I say that, is you have to understand the 10 days of awe. You also have to understand the Day of Atonement and every detail, because that's crucial to Satan. Um, as I said, we're in the second year of the 10 years of awe. We're Satan. So I've got another book being written right now. It's done. I've just got to finish editing. It's called A Lion Rises Up, The Coming of Apollyon. What happened with Israel this year and defeating Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iraq, the Syrians, and Iran. I think I missed one, so the West Bank. All those 7 fronts, all at the same time. Israel did something amazing. There's 3 horns that are going to fall. One horn is Syria, the other horn was Iran, and the one that fell before that was Iraq. These are the 3 horns that are talking about. So this beast system that you're talking about is a government system, but it's different than all the others. You remember
Well,
that's what it
and
says.
what you're saying is it's been something that's been throughout years and years and years and generations of time, rather than something that's in a small window of time.
Most Christian apologetics put everything in the last 7 years.
Okay.
Up until that 7 years, life is normal. But Revelation 6 started 625 AD, has continued all the way down to our time now. People are looking for something, this mythological thing to take place during that 7 years. Again, they're guessing. They're saying 2,000 years, 20 times 50, or what is it, 40 times 50 to get from Christ in whatever year he died, 30, 27, 34, whatever. And that brings you to where we are now. And that's their theology. But it doesn't hold water in a court of law. Even if you guess and get lucky and get it right, it still doesn't mean you're right. You just got a lucky guess. You have no idea how to do the work. How did you figure that out? So on the Day of Atonement, there are two goats. They look exactly alike. One represents, or you read in there, I think it's verse 10, Leviticus 16, it says, one goat is for Jehovah. That's the goat that's going to be sacrificed. The other goat gets all the sins put on it, and it is led out into the wilderness and thrown in the pit, or thrown off a cliff, or set free. That represents Azazel, the one that's put out or set free. That's Satan. Some Christians think that that's Jesus because all the sins are put on. That's wrong. Revelation 20 tells you the strong man comes and takes a goat, or takes that Satan, the same as Revelation 16 does, and leads him off and throws him in the pit, locks him up for 1,000 years. At the end of that 1,000 years, the same ceremony takes place again. That strong man comes and takes Satan and throws him in the lake of fire, and then he's burnt up and gone forever. That's Revelation or Leviticus 16, the Day of Atonement. And because we don't keep it, in all the different churches, we don't keep it, we don't know that Satan has already deceived us. There's two goats, they look exactly alike. One looks like one is God, one is Satan. They look alike. How do you tell them a difference? How do you tell them apart? You can't. Even the high priest couldn't tell them apart. He has to reach into his pocket and draw lots, one for the Azazel and one for the goat. I mean, one for the sacrifice. That sacrifice goat, the one that represents God, is the sin offering. So here's a question. The Passover lamb is never a sin offering. It was never a sin offering. How did Jesus become a sin offering when he died at Passover? Because that Passover lamb could be a lamb or a goat, which is the connection back to the Day of Atonement. If you don't understand the Day of Atonement, same way if you don't understand Passover, all the details of Passover he died by. All the details of the Day of Atonement are going to happen again. It shows you where Satan's going to come into that picture. Satan is not a sacrifice. You wouldn't have sacrificed an abomination. That's crazy. You have to sacrifice a pure goat that is clean. God only takes purity, holy, clean, Kodesh stuff. Anything that's contaminated, he rejects. So a goat that's got all the sins on it, that's a rejection. That's why it's taken outside. It's not even allowed in the temple. It's taken away, led away. So that's what Satan represents. He's the one that brought sin in. He's the one that's been deceiving the world. He's the one deceiving mankind right now. Except, whatever denomination you're in, you can't be deceived because, the Protestants or Second Baptists, we're the only ones that know the truth. That's not true. He's deceived the whole world. How has he done that? When you read the two Babylons, you're going to get a really good picture of how he did it and how we're still involved in it and how many people are going around like this thinking they're seeing, but they don't see nothing.
Yeah,
I just
they're conditioned, man. I mean,
I just had a cataract removed out of my eye last week, and I had another lens put in. When I the next day when I looked outside and I covered the one I had the operation on, I could see the world, and it still looked like it normally did to me. And then I covered my good eye and looked with the one that just got fixed, and it was just like a bright light shining through everything, as if you'd gone into heaven and all that bright light is shining on you. And then I just came from an appointment here just before I got on with you. And he said, that's what it would look like from the beginning. That brightness that you see, that's what you were born with. And the eye that I thought was normal, that's been covered over with a film over time that you don't realize is covering over your eye. That's the deception Satan has done to us all. He's covered us with this film. We don't realize how dirty we are, how revolting we are in God's eyes, because we haven't bothered to get the film off and see with a pure, clean eye, which is
Mm.
what this one is now. And I'm telling you, the lights are so bright and
Yeah.
so vibrant.
That's a good point. Okay, so with everything that we kind of covered, right? So we're I know you mentioned, 19 years, right, before that seventh millennium, right?
Yep.
Okay. So and I encourage everyone to go back and revisit this episode because I feel like it'll all come back together. Because there's just a lot of numbers thrown around,
There,
but but
there's a
but
ton
but
of
it's
information.
gonna make sense. It's kind of like when you read a book and you're like, what did I just read? But the more you read it, the more you're like, oh wow, how come I didn't understand that the first time? But so where we're at now, what would you see projected to happen, or where would we be in the next 2 years, 3 years, around that time?
So again, I'm going to give you just the iceberg. I'm not going to give you all the stuff below the surface here because that'd take another 2 hours. Within the next 2 years, I'm going to see Satan's forces spreading out and starting to um, take over. I see Apollyon coming in 2028. I see in 2026 the two witnesses coming on the world scene. I see the weather changing again and rain being stopped, curses being laid out. I see the remnant that's left being brought back to Israel at the end of 2029 and fleeing into the wilderness in 2030. So there's a duality taking place here. I see the Great
So
Tribulation.
abomination of desolation would be 2030.
No, the abomination of desolation has already taken place in 2023. It's already been set up. I see Satan coming and people believing that he's the Messiah. He's coming in 28. Why is that important? Because 2,000 years ago, that's when Jesus started his ministry, 27, 28. If you're going to use that math, 50, times 40, that's what they get. And people are looking for the 7 years of Great Tribulation to start, but they won't realize that it's Satan. How can you tell them apart? How do you tell those two goats apart? Only with your Bible. If you're studying YouTube, if you're studying all these other books, but you're not studying your Bible, you're going to be deceived. If you're not obeying God, you're already deceived. That's what, everyone says I'm a good person, but God didn't say good people are going to get in. Those who obey will. We have the parable of the son uh, who said that he was going to obey God, but he doesn't. And then the other one says he's going to obey God, doesn't, but then changes his mind and does. The one that did is the good one. The one that didn't isn't. So where are you in, and I'm speaking general now, where are you in your walk? Are you obeying God? Or are you going down various rabbit holes looking up stuff that, you know, does that matter in the kingdom of God? There's one law for the Jew, there's one law for the Gentile. It's the same law. Whether you're Jew or Gentile, it's the same law. So if there's one law for both, what law is going to be kept in the kingdom? The same law. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He does not change. We all know that. Then why aren't we obeying the law? Well, we've changed. Our church changed it. The Pope changed it. Somebody changed it. The rabbis changed it. Well, you have a Bible. You can read. You're an intelligent person. He's poured out his spirit on all flesh in the last days, according to Joel. If that's true, then that spirit being poured out in you should be able to read the Bible and understand these things. But you have to read it. You can't just read the titles. You can't just skim from chapter to chapter or one verse here, one verse. You got to read the Bible, read it in context, understand what it says. When you read something that you don't understand, go to an encyclopedia. Those are the books of the library. You can now do it on your phone and look up what they mean. It's explained in the Mishnah. Not everything in the Mishnah is correct, but read what the Mishnah says for understanding what these things are talking about. We have got to obey God if we want to be in that kingdom. There are 10 virgins, 5 of them are ready, 5 of them are not. You get to choose which one you're going to be. These Jubilee cycles show us we are at the end of time. The 10 days of awe, the holy days, show us that judgment begins again, the same as it did with Noah, the same as it did with Lot, the same as it did at the end of these 7 years of famine in Joseph's time. That ends, final ending in 2033. That's when Satan will be locked away. And if you can understand that, those holy days also tell you when the rapture is going to take place. We got another book on our site called The Rapture, The Mystery of the Jewish Rapture. What? The rapture is Jewish? Yes, it's Jewish.
I'm glad we're going down this road because that was my next question. Because the rapture is something that, people say it's there's just so many different views of the rapture, right? People say, there is no rapture. The rapture is not even in the Bible. It's just, which it's just the Latin term for snatching away, right? Like we know that. But what's your perspective with that, and what would you say the timing of these things would be?
So the title of the book, The Mystery of the Jewish Rapture, 2033, is giving you a bunch of clues or a bunch of hints that you need to look at. If you want to understand the rapture, go back to Leviticus 23. Read it. It's right there. The snatching away, the rapturo, whatever you want to say in Latin, what does it mean? It's a resurrection of the saints. The New Testament talks about the resurrection of the saints. I forgot the guy's name that started the rapture theory in 1830. Yeah, he may have been on to something. Is it pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib? It doesn't matter. It says in Revelation, 144,000 and an innumerable multitude come out of the tribulation. That's at the end of the tribulation. This rapture has already taken place one time. It's going to take place a second time, which is the one you want to be in. Then there's a third one at the end of the 7th millennium. You don't want to be in that one. You want to be in the one right now. How do you get there? Study Leviticus 23. Read it. Where does it tell you that? To understand the rapture, you got to understand the Passover. Again, there's so much information here. How much time you want? You got 3 more hours?
Oh, let's go, man. I got half hour, 40 minutes.
Well, because okay, then let's do it. So Jesus dies on a Wednesday. I'm talking about the rapture now. We start with the Passover. Jesus dies on a Wednesday. He's killed at 3:00 in the afternoon, and he's put in the grave. So this chronology is given to you starting in John 12:1, which I used in my demonstration. He's in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. That's Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night. Thursday day, Friday day, and Saturday day. That's 3 days and 3 nights. If your Messiah is in the grave starting Good Friday at 3:00, that gives you Friday night and Saturday night and Saturday day. That's 2 nights and 1 day. If that's your Messiah, he ain't the Messiah. He's going to be in the grave 3 days and 3 nights, as he was in the belly of the fish, according to Jonah. So 3 days and 3 nights. That means he comes out of the grave at the end of the Sabbath. The Sabbath represents the 7th millennium. That's Hebrews 3 and chapter 4. You want to enter into that Sabbath rest. That's what the Sabbath is all about, is teaching about the 7th millennium of rest. That's why we need to be keeping it. So he comes out of the grave after the Sabbath. It's dark. Sunset begins the next day. After sunset, Mary Magdalene, in the dark, comes to the grave. And she sees him. She thinks he's the gardener. And he says, Mary. And she goes to come to him or hug him. And he says, don't touch me. I've not yet ascended. That same day, which is a Sunday, the first day of the week, he then goes to the apostle and said, look, I'm the one, I'm him. Look, put your finger in my hand or my side. I'm dead, or I was dead, and now I'm alive. Why could the apostles touch him, but Mary couldn't? Was he racist? He doesn't like women? What's going on here? He had not yet ascended. What does that mean? There's only one place you can find this out. Matthew 27, verse 50. It says, he died and gave up the spirit. And then the next verse. And then when that happened, the chamber of hewn stones split in half, and the curtain was torn from top to bottom. And there was a great earthquake. And it says that the graves of the saints were raised up. And then it says those saints came out of the grave after Yeshua came out of the grave at the end of the Sabbath, or the end of those 3 days and 3 nights. What were you just told? Matthew is the only one that writes about it. No one else records it. He's the only one that records it. What did he just tell you? This is what the whole Gospels is about. This is why the apostles went all around the world claiming what they did. This is why they were ready to die for what they had just seen. Matthew 27, verse 50 to 53. The saints came back to life. Before Yeshua died, he said, no man's gone to heaven except the Son of Man who came down from heaven, which means that Elijah never went to heaven. Enoch never went to heaven. Moses, David, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, nobody has gone to heaven. Or you're right, and Jesus is a liar. Nobody's gone to heaven except the Son of Man who came down from heaven. But then when he's on the tree, he said to the thief on the tree, today you will be with me in paradise. He died on the Wednesday. That thief did not go to heaven on the Wednesday. It's the same as at the beginning, Adam and Eve, they eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The day you eat of it, you will die. Well, that wasn't the day they died. They lived 930 years. That was a millennial day. The millennial day when Yeshua said this was another 50 years later in 84 AD. So that same millennial day, that thief did go with him to paradise. In Mark, I want to say 16, but I'm not sure. It says that in the grave was a young man clothed in white. And that young man told him where they would meet him on the road to Emmaus. It's a young man. It's not an angel. It's a man, a young man. Is that the thief on the tree? It could be. We don't know. But it's a young man. Now jump forward to Revelation, what is it, chapter 11 or 7? There are 24 elders in heaven. 24 elders in heaven. Well, how did the elders get in heaven? The word elders in Greek means ancestors, people who lived before us. If they lived before us, how did they get in heaven? Jesus said, no man's gone to heaven. How did they get there? There is no explanation for it except those saints that came out of the grave that Sunday. And they were seen by many. What is this talking about? So now go back to Leviticus 23. If you want to understand the rapture, here's the secret meaning of the rapture. And I'm sorry, but after I tell you this, I have to kill you because otherwise it won't be a secret. Okay, you want the secret information now? Here we go.
All right, let's go. Do I need to do a certain handshake for it? Well, secret handshake.
We gotta go like this.
Okay.
And then you can put this in your paid
People are gonna
members
drop in the comments now. They're gonna be like, "Dude, this guy's a Freemason." Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, "Oh golly, give me a break."
Yeah.
Little comic relief, guys. Relax.
They go to Leviticus 23, and it tells you at the beginning of the year for Passover, you must offer first fruits. You're to make first fruits. and you're to bring that before the priest and wave it before the priest. So this is also described in the Mishnah. When you go on a Friday, you go out into the fields and you mark the barley. And you look for the barley that's ready to be weighed. It has to be ripe. You got to be able to grind the barley into flour. So you can, cut it and it dry out overnight, but it's still got to be at a certain stage that you can grind it in the flour. So the barley is marked on the Friday night. When Yeshua died, that's the same as those graves being raised up. They were being marked. They were being identified. These are the saints. Not all graves were raised up, only the saints. That's the barley being marked. Then there's a ceremony that they do. Again, you read this in the Mishnah. And you go out Saturday night after the sun is set, and the first thing he does, we have the whole community out here doing this, and the whole community is excited. They're anticipating what's about to happen. And the priest says, "Has the sun set?" And all the people say, "Yes, the sun is set." And they do this 3 times. There's a great big party. "Has the sun set?" "Yes." "Has the sun set?" "Yes, the sun is set." Then he says, "Is this the barley?" And he points to the patch. And they all say, "Yes, that's the barley." And he does it 3 times. "Yes, that's the barley. Yes, that's the barley." Then he says, "Is this the sickle? I should cut the barley." It's a big deal, right? 3 times. "Yes, that's the sickle. Yes, that's the sickle. Is this the basket?" "Yes, that's the basket. Yes, that's the basket." And they do this as a ceremony. "Shall I cut the barley?" They said, "Yes, cut the barley." 3 times. And then he cuts the barley. They take the barley, they stand it in a stook overnight. A stook is where the long stems of barley are leaned up against each other, and they cut enough for an omer. And an omer is basically one great big salad bowl. So they cut enough barley. You're not waving the barley, you're waving the flour that you make from the barley. They stand it up overnight. The barley knows it's about to die. So it sucks up overnight all the juice out of the stem to form a kernel in the head. If it's a dough, it'll form a kernel. If it's partially done, they take it the next morning and they roast it over a fire to evaporate the rest of the moisture and turn that kernel into something hard. Once it's hard, then they sift it out or thresh it out, and they get the kernels and they grind it up into flour. And then they send it through 7 or 13 sieves, and then they add frankincense, salt, and olive oil. And they make a big salad bowl, and they go in front of the altar 9 a.m. Sunday morning. Every day we're to do our prayers the same time they did the sacrifices. Every day they did a sacrifice every single day at 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Yeshua was put on the tree at 9 a.m. He died at 3 p.m. according to these sacrifices, every little detail. At 9 a.m., they wave this barley in front of the altar. They wave it to the north and to the south and to the east and to the west. And then they take a handful and they throw it in the altar. Again, for God. And then the priest, it's most holy. This flour is most holy because it represents something, and only the priests are allowed to eat it. Once that sacrifice is done, then the people are told it's done. Now they can go out and start harvesting their fields. You're not allowed to harvest anything until that ceremony is completed at 9 a.m. Joshua does the same thing, Joshua 5, verse 10, when he crosses the Jordan River. Now they can eat after the Passover was done, the morrow after the Passover, which is the Sunday, and the sacrifice has been made. Now they can eat the grains of the land. So what does God care about the grain? Is he hungry? Does he need that handful of the very first one? It's representation of something. Paul says, if the lump is holy, the whole lump is holy. Or if a handful is holy, I forget exactly how he said it, but you know what I mean, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The whole lump is the same way as that little portion. These are the first fruits of the barley, and they represent the first fruits of mankind to be raised back from the grave. That would be, and I don't know for sure, but I believe it would be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Enoch, Elijah. pick your other saints that were holier than anything. They would be the first ones raised up. Again, I don't know. They would become the 24 elders, which means they were ancestors that lived before us. Okay, but that took place in 31 AD. That took place at Passover in 31 AD. That's called the Wave Sheaf Day. It took place on the Sunday. It took place not on the Sabbath, not on a holy day. It took place on the 8th day of the week. This now tells you something. From that day, it says to count to the Feast of First Fruits, or Shavuot, or Pentecost, you're to count 7 Sabbaths, and you're also to count 50 days from that day. And when you get to that next one, you have another wave offering. Only this wave offering is 2 loaves of bread with leaven in it. What did Yeshua say you and I are? We're the wheat. These loaves of bread are made from the wheat. The wheat is the next harvest, takes place at Shavuot. The very first fruits of wheat are taken and made into these loaves. And they're presented before Jehovah, and they're weighed before God. What do they represent? They represent the next crop, or the next group of people to be raised up. Who are they? Revelation, I think, 11. The 144,000, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes, and an innumerable multitude. What's it? 2 million. We can count the 2 million man army. So 2 million plus 1, that's what we can't count. So this innumerable multitude is a vast number of people that are raised up at the end of the tribulation. Now you know when the next wave offering, or the next rapture, or the next resurrection of the saints will take place. At the end of the Great Tribulation, when Satan is locked away. Don't look to the harvest 4 months hence, for the fields are ripe right now. That's Shavuot. Don't look for the fall. They're ready right now.
And these are the ones that are represented in Revelation chapter 7, right? Where, John's kind of looking in heaven and he sees where he's like, where did this multitude come from?
Is that 7? Yes. The 144,000? Yes.
And
Surely
then he
you
was
know.
like, they came out of great tribulation.
That's it.
So, right.
So
Okay.
at the
I'm
end of the
following you.
tribulation, this is when this resurrection takes place. What day? You now know the day. Shavuot. Shavuot, or
And this is all
Pentecost
out of the
Sunday.
mission. This is the Mishnah stuff, right?
No, this is Leviticus 23.
Oh, okay.
The Mishnah tells you how they did it. Leviticus 23 tells you when it's going to take place. But because we don't keep Leviticus 23, we've done away with the Sabbath and the holy days. Therefore, we don't know any of this stuff. And we're going to guess when the rapture is going to be. It can be today, it could be tomorrow. Therefore, come down here, give your tithe, and I'll bless you, and you'll be saved. That's a bunch of malarkey. It's right there. The same law Jehovah gave from the beginning is the same law that's going to be there in the kingdom, and we need to obey it in order to understand and be a part of that kingdom. That's the rapture. And all these people are going, this guy's nuts. I'm not going to listen to him. Good. Then I'll see you at the end of the 7th millennium, because that's when the rest of the people are going to be raised up. That'll be the 3rd resurrection of the saints, and that takes place in the Feast of Shemini Atzeret. That's the 8th day feast. That's what that day is representing at the end of the 7th millennium. Again, if you don't know the holy days, you don't know his plan of salvation.
Yeah, this is intense, right? Because when we're talking about because there's so many, right? Because I get it, right? I mean, even someone will say, oh, well, there's multiple, exactly, kind of like what you're saying, multiple raptures, right? Which I can understand that. I can mess with that. It's even Enoch supposedly was raptured, right? So there's multiple raptures that are present in the Bible. But I'm
Jesus
just
said,
saying,
no man gone to heaven. So
right?
Enoch wasn't raptured. So he didn't go to heaven. He was moved to a different place. Elijah went up in a tornado, but he didn't go to heaven. So again, no one's gone to heaven except the Son of Man. So he said that long after those two guys had lived. We need to get our facts and understand them and either believe what he said or not believe him and believe your own theology. And that's the problem we have. How many different churches are there? They all claim to follow the Bible, but there's only one Bible. There's, you know, I'm going to say 8,000, 800,000. I don't know, infinitum different churches. That's not even counting the infinitum different religions that all claim to be following God. He only wrote one Bible, the same one nobody wants to obey, that nobody wants to do. And yet here we are at the end of this age, and everyone's guessing as to when the rapture is going to be or when the Messiah is coming. And it tells you, the Feast of Trumpets tells you when he's coming. Again, another holy day in Leviticus 23. But if you don't know what they mean, you don't understand what they are, and you don't understand the sacrifice that go with each one, you're guessing. If you don't know the Jubilees, you have no idea where we are in the whole chronology of man. Yes, there are a lot of different people with different chronologies. How do you prove which one's right? I'm saying go to 2 Kings 19:29. Start right there. Excuse me. Then you can prove this to yourself. You don't have to believe me. You can prove it to yourself. All these things that I've just said to you come from 40 years of studying the Bible, not what people said about the Bible, not what YouTube, we didn't have YouTube back then, is studying the Bible and just praying to God, asking him, what does this mean? And when I did that, he would answer me. It was so surreal. Every time I asked, what does that mean? I would get an answer from some Christian radio station or the Bible itself or some other thing that I listened to within a couple of days. But there it was. And the more I dug into that, the more clear it became. But if we want to chase, you want to chase the Nephilim, you want to chase the angels mixing with people, knock yourself out. That doesn't help you get into the seventh millennium. It doesn't help you learn about God. It's an interesting, it's like reading a Nancy Drew. Do you know what Nancy Drew is? If I said that,
No, no.
I just dated myself. Oh boy, it's it's, it's like reading Harlequin romance. I don't know, something fictitious, and just reading the whole series and never learning about God.
Well, I'll say this. Do you think it's really that fictitious if it was in a lot of Jewish literature? That it was something that was talked about by Jews, like, even before Jesus's time?
So, and you know what a Geniza is? If I told you they found a
Mm-mm.
lot of this literature in a Geniza. So a Geniza is a place where you put uh, all papers that have God's name written on Jehovah. You're not allowed to burn that or destroy it. And you put it in an earthen jar, the same as Yeshua was put in an earthen grave. That's what the Jehovah represents. So you're not allowed to burn it. And you put it in a Geniza. And even during the 200 to AD to 200 BC, during that time, they had a lot of fictitious books. And the books of Enoch, the books of Jubilees, the Dead Sea Scrolls themselves, they mixed the truth with false teachings. The Assyrians were heretics. They left Jerusalem because of John Hyrcanus. And out of these Geniza came these heretic books. And they've been reinvented here in the last 20 years by people saying these are the missing books out of the Bible. Really, God would have what, 2,000 years of people growing up not knowing what the Bible said? Really? That's fictitious. That's not true. You don't need those books to know what the Bible says. But most people won't read the Bible. They would rather read the book of Enoch and try and figure out the calendar that he has, which is a solar calendar. Same with the book of Jubilees. It's a solar calendar. 30, 30, and 30, and then 31, or 2 30s and a 31 day. There's no such thing as a 31-day month.
Hmm.
The month is either 29 or 30.
Well, they were
And it's based
28
on the
days. They're 28-day cycles, right?
depends on
I'm
who you're
trying to.
listening to. The different calendars out there, they all got different
Right.
things. They're all based on the equinox. They're all based on the solar, the sun. God's calendar, the one that's in the Bible, is based on the crescent moon to begin the month, the barley to begin the year, and you counting out those days. With the 30 or 28, whichever one you want to use, you don't have to count. and they have them land on the same day of the week. That's not true either. They're different days of the week. Again, these are reinvented mythological books that have been disappeared for 2,000 years and now been reinvented just at the end of this age. Satan's deceived the whole world,
Hmm.
except for those people that read the book of Enoch or Jubilee. They're the only ones not deceived, or the people following the Zadok calendar. Come on. The whole world's deceived. And how do you know that? Those two goats that I told you about, even the high priest couldn't tell them apart. The only way to tell them apart is by reading the Torah,
Well, so
reading
I
your
remember
Bible.
you mentioned earlier too, right? Where the scapegoat, right? So Azazel, right? So
Azazel. Yeah.
Azazel, yeah. So we know Azazel is a fallen angel. I think you mentioned he was Satan.
No, I didn't say he's a fallen angel. That comes out of the book of Enoch. Azazel is a goat. It means the removal, to remove him away. Okay. It's not an angel. So don't think that there's two angels here being represented. One represents Satan, one represents Jehovah. But Jehovah's not killed when that goat is killed every year.
Hmm.
He's killed when Yeshua died on the tree at Passover in 31 AD. That other goat that's going to be killed will be killed at the end of the seventh millennium. It's not an angel. That's a demon.
So do you think there are fallen angels?
Yeah, Satan took 1/3 of the angels with him.
Hmm.
That's displayed to you in the constellations every night. You know,
Right.
the Virgo is up there. Virgo is the woman about to give birth to the child. That child is Messiah. That's the branch. We read about the branch in Isaiah. Beneath the Virgo is a Satan or a serpent. It's about to eat the child. We read about that in Revelation 12. That whole constellation is described right there in Revelation 12. But that serpent, 1/3 of the stars is below it. That represents the 1/3 of the angels that the Bible talks about. Where do we get this from? The first thing that God taught us was he put this whole story of salvation in the stars. Those stars still say the same story, but we've now lost a lot of the meaning. But Isaiah read that. If you read a lot of Isaiah, Job knew the stars. He knew what they meant. Isaiah did too. But again, we got to be careful not to get mixed up with mythological books with the truth.
Well, I respect that. I really do because it's something that it's on my radar, of course. But the reason why I am an advocate for the sons of God, the fallen angels, that this was a real thing that actually happened. And then you have, the Tower of Babel, which was kind of recirculating that same type of religion after the flood. Then God dispersed those nations and they continued to, continue on with this religion that I believe was a part of the world before the flood. But when I read in Genesis 6 and it says the B'nai Elohim, right? If I was um, if I was, you know, 800 BCE and I was reading through the Masoretic texts and I'm reading that, I'm reading Job and I'm reading Genesis. Some scholars today will say that Job is actually predates Genesis. But anyways, with that in mind, I would be reading Genesis and seeing B'nai Elohim, and I would want to cross examine that or cross reference that with another area in the Bible to let it define itself. And I would do that in Job. And Job also says that, when Satan went up amongst the sons of God, these were the angels that were praising and worshiping the Lord. So when I take that, I consider that as far as okay, yeah, this can be something to where these are angelic celestial beings, maybe something considered that's a part of the second heaven, right? Or even what if, in Jude, the New Testament, right? Yeah, where it says the angels that left their first estate or their initial habitation in some other translations, right? You have this, but why is that kind of stuff being talked about and said if there's nothing to it, if that makes any sense? I'm saying, like, I think there's
Yep.
something to it. We may not have all the right answers, but I think there might be something behind it.
Let me respond with a similar type question to you.
Mhm.
In Exodus, we're told Israel was given the manna, and God said, "Pick it for 6 days and prepare it on the sixth day for the seventh, but don't go out on the seventh and look for it. Why did he send the manna on the seventh day? If you're not to go out and pick it, why did he send it? Now bring that back to your question about the angels.
Mm-hmm.
It's a test. You're told not to go out on the Sabbath and pick the barley or pick the manna. Then why send it? Well, it's a test. He's giving you, Moses even said, he's giving you the barley or the manna as a test. Why are these angels being described in these books, like you said? What's the test?
Mm-hmm.
So
Maybe.
at the tree of knowledge of good and evil,
Mm-hmm.
you got to choose. Do you choose this tree or do you choose a tree of life?
Right. And that was going to
Adam
be my
chose.
answer is, which God do you choose to worship?
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a test. What do you want to study? You didn't know, and I'm saying you, your audience, I'm speaking general here. You didn't know when the rapture was until I just explained it to you. Now you got a whole bunch of homework to go. Is this guy really right? Is he really? I gotta go look at this stuff. Or you just write me off as a lunatic and you just carry on your merry little life, not knowing anything. But you've now been told. What do you want to do? Do you want to know the truth, the tree of life, or do you want to know the tree of knowledge of good? There's some good stuff there, but there's a lot of crap there too. Where do you want to spend your eternity? Like Adam and Eve, they screwed up, and we've been paying for it for the last 5,600 or 5,861 years. Do you want to do that again to your descendants? No, we're not going to do that again. It's time to study the Bible, the tree
Amen,
of
brother.
life. It's time to put away all this nonsense, you know, this bickering between divisive stuff that really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Is there, did the angels got names or do they not get names? Doesn't matter. What did the angels got to do with Leviticus 23 and knowing the holy days that God gave you to keep that you're not keeping? Nothing. The angels that are obeying God, they're obeying the commandments as well. Are you? The tree of knowledge of good and evil or the tree of life? You get to choose. Where do you want to spend all your time? Go down another rabbit hole. I got people that love rabbit holes. And guess what? They don't know anything about the stuff that I'm talking about. They don't know the Jubilees. They can't prove when they are. They couldn't teach their mother when the holy days are because they spend all their time on YouTube going from one subject to the next, one distraction to the next. Really, what it is, it's porn. It's biblical porn. And you go from one pornography to another, one Playboy club to another, one hustler to another, one exotic moment to another, and your adrenaline is being stimulated, but you're not learning how to love your one wife and loving only her. That's Jehovah, that's God. So yeah, we can spend a lot of time chasing porn, and that's it. That's your sex life. That's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Or you can spend all your time devoted to your wife, making her the queen of everything you do. The tree of life. Which do you want to do? You know, the things that I'm saying today, the things that I taught you, should be general knowledge. Everybody should know this. I'm not the smartest pencil in the deck here. Yet nobody knows these things I'm talking about. Nobody knows the day they are. Well, that's the Feast of Trumpets. Well, no, it's not. Yes, it is if you study the Torah. You can learn these things, but we choose to remain in our ignorance. We choose to remain in some rabbit hole because it's safe. We're an expert at our rabbit hole, but we aren't experts at God. We don't know Him. We couldn't teach Him if our lives depended on it. And they actually do because we are that close. If I'm correct, I say if, prove me right or prove me wrong, one way or the other. Next year, the two witnesses will be here. What will they look like? Who will they sound like? What are they saying? Are they restoring all things? Have they restored all things? Do you even know what needs to be restored? Then if they're here, that means Satan is also coming. Apollyon. And if Apollion's coming, how will you tell him apart from God? Those two goats are exactly alike. How can you tell them apart? I'm an expert at YouTube videos. Good for you. How's how's that going to help you decide these two goats?
That's a solid
Right?
point. That's a solid point, man.
I'm an expert at the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm an expert at the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees and the newest creation, the Book of Zadok. I'm an expert at all these different things, but you don't know the first thing about God. Those two goats are look exactly alike, and Satan has already deceived the whole world. He's been doing it since the flood, and nobody even knows it. But when you read the Alexander Hislop's two Babylons, you're going to get your eyes wide open.
Yeah, I'm excited when it comes in, man. We'll have a lot more to talk about, man, for sure. I'm excited about
Just
that.
give me a heads up so I can brush up on some of those things.
Okay, I will. I will. I know I kind of caught you off guard a little bit with the archaeological sites and stuff. It was just something I saw in your bio. I was like, dude, let's talk about it. Let's
Eh,
because
I'm
that's fun stuff. It's fun stuff to
it
talk
is.
about things that really support biblical history. You know.
I went there first of all because I could, and you can still do it today. Andrew Jones Discovery Tours. He does it fairly cheap. He does both Noah's Ark and Mount Sinai and Egypt. He's got a tour going in November this year. If you want to go, go. I don't know, $3,000 to $5,000. I don't know what it is. You won't find anyone cheaper. But once you see this stuff and you read your Bible, you will be blown away. I did it to prove that God was real. I know that God is real. I've been to Mount Sinai. I've been to Noah's Ark. I've been to Joshua's altar in the land of Israel. I've been to Israel 25 times, taken tours since my first year. I know where all these things are. I've proven it reading my Bible. That's what you got to do. And the time for playing religion is over. We don't got time. And if I apologize if I sound arrogant or stuck up or whatever you want to say I am, I just don't got time to beat around the bush anymore. I don't got time to be polite. You either read your Bible or you're dead. That's where we are. The beast power is here. It's ready. It's rolling. You're seeing it on the night in the news. You just don't know what you're looking at. And that book, A Lion Rises Up, it'll be out the end of this month. Get it. Learn this stuff and understand what you're watching on the nightly news right now. I'm telling you, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
Impressive stuff, man. Well, hey, listen, this is we're gonna have to continue another episode after this because I feel like there's just even more. Maybe we just scratched the surface with some of this
We,
stuff,
we've
man.
we have. I've given you the iceberg stuff. We can drill down on almost any one of these subjects and go 2 to 3 hours. My teaching is a 40-hour teaching.
Okay.
That's just the bare minimum. When I go to a presentation in a church or someplace, and I've been to the Philippines, East Africa, all across North America, it's 5 hours minimum. And that's just a touch on the prophetic stuff that's happening right now. And we barely even touched on it today. We never even talked about the Daniel 9 prophecy. That's huge. But it
Okay.
only
Well,
can
I'll
be
tell you what.
understood with the Jubilee cycles.
Take a note down of it. We'll cover it again. When we revisit each other, man. But this episode was fun, man. I'm gonna come back and re-listen to it when I post it on platforms. I'll be releasing it on YouTube and audio platforms and stuff. I'll be sure to email you a copy, and you could share it to
Thank you.
whoever whatever audience or fan base you have if they want to watch it and stuff like that. But Joseph, real quick, man, before we depart and I move into the next segment, is there just I know you shared a lot of good messages there at the end, and those are awesome, man. And people need to get into the Bible. People need to run to the Bible. They need to, your nose needs to be so, far up that thing that, you could, you're just
It's
one
got to be
with it.
right down the seam, right in the crack, right there in your face.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
You get what I'm saying, man. And I tell you what, there was something that I heard the other day. It was a pastor talking about it. And number one, I've repented from my ways, not just the way of my thing. I've been saved 16 years, and obviously life is a roller coaster and stuff. You can get far on the leash from God, or you can get as close to the owner as possible. And that's kind of where I'm at, man. And my community knows it, my audience knows it. God's working on me. He's continuously, bringing these guests that are wonderful guests, and I'm having fun conversations with them. But I'm learning a lot, but I feel he's chiseling me up. He's
Can I jump in on that?
yeah.
When I first heard that you were interested in having me on, I went and listened to you guys, and I listened to a bunch of different shows, but I didn't know which one was which, and I'm pretty sure it was you. You said something that was very profound, and I thought, wow, now I want to talk to this guy. Now I really want to talk to this guy. And you said something to the effect that at the end of our discussion, at the end of our debate, and I say the same thing in my midrash each week. If you can't love me and disagree with me, then you're not a son of God. And I'm paraphrasing what you said. I'm really butchering what you said. But basically, what you said, we've got to love each other at the end of this discussion. You will know them by their love for each other. So many people want to, the cancel culture, or if you disagree with me, blot them out of your life. You never learn nothing when everyone disagrees with you. It's by having these discussions of different views, and I think this is what you were saying, that are done in love. It's not to prove one is right or one is wrong. It's for all of us to come to know God and to know Him at a deeper understanding, a better level. That's the whole purpose. I'm not doing this to be famous. I'm certainly not doing this to get rich. I'm doing this because no one else is doing it. No one else is teaching the Jubilee cycles or the prophecies that they reveal. The Jubilee cycles are the key to understanding all end time prophecy. But if you don't know the Jubilee cycles, you won't know how true that is until you actually study it. But do it in love. Get on your knees. Pray to God. Is this guy a crackpot? Is he absolutely off his tree? Or is there something here I need to pay attention to? God, I don't know the answer. Help me to find it. And there's a prayer in Psalms. Open my eyes so I can see your truth, see your glory. Help me to see, God, these truths. Pray. He'll hear you. He's pouring his spirit out on all flesh in these last days. Even, I'm saying the general you, even you. Pray and ask him to help you to understand. So I thank you for saying something like that a few, 2, 3 months ago when I listened.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, because that's the kind of that's at least what God put on my heart. And especially you get different people on, different perspectives, different theological perspectives. I mean, it's where we can exchange information, we could have a conversation, and we don't have to get all riled up or disgruntled or discouraged or shut down. It's like let's just have a conversation, and hear each other out. And I think at the end of the day, there's so many things we can take from each other. There's things that, even if it's not something we want to put in our bag necessarily, but if you say something where I'm going to go, okay, you know what, I'm going to go look this up. And then you look it up, and then maybe God takes you down, this road with that subject, and then he shows you certain things. So there's, this, we can't put all of this stuff in our mushy head at one moment. It's a journey, and it's something
Yeah.
that I thank the Lord every day for allowing me to be able to just cross paths with awesome people, you being one of them, and for my audience and whoever supports the show to be there as well. And so um Joseph, you're awesome, man. I appreciate you for coming on. We're gonna get you back on again. We'll get into some different topics. I'll try and communicate with my community to where I can request them to ask questions for you.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun. That would be engaging, and it also helps them out. Maybe come to a certain understanding of some things. Real quick, where can the audience support you the most, and find wherever other outlets you're at?
So if you go to sightedmoon.com, sightedmoon.com, and That's my website. We have our store there. We have PDFs you can buy instantly, or you can go to Amazon to get the books. The books, they give you all the details. They go into great detail. Or you can go to the newsletter, and the newsletter is also this by subject, so you can look it up by subject. But you got to read a lot of different information there. The books actually take away all the stuff you don't need and just concentrate it in one area. So I would recommend the book, especially the riddle book for your audience. It was a riddle, not a command. To understand that Yeshua was telling you the very day he's coming back on. If you go to the website, go to the store, The Stones Cry Out, part 1 and part 2. These are 300-400-page books I'm giving to you free. They're PDFs. I'm going to get your email. Like I said, if you don't like what I'm saying, just unsubscribe. That's it. You're done. And I won't be sending you any more. If you want a hard copy, you go to Amazon to get it. But we got to learn. You got a Bible, start reading it, start studying it, start praying to God. Help you to understand. If we're correct, we've been correct about 2020. We're correct about the 1290 and 1335 days for the abomination. If those three are correct, I believe we're going to be correct about the 2300 of Daniel 8. That's next year. You don't have a lot of time to play games. And that's basically the bottom line. I'm here to help you. I'm not here for you to follow. You're to follow God. If you can do it in your Bible, great. My books are to help short circuit some of that studying to get you to get there quicker. If that can help, great. But you don't need my books. You have your Bible. Just read it.
Amen, brother. Well, all right, man. Well, listen, this was a fun show. I'll get with you again, man. But everyone, Joseph Dumond. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Steve. Bye-bye. Shalom, everyone.
All right, Biblical Hitman Debrief. What is up, everybody? Joseph Dumond, man. Hey, thank you for coming on the show, bro. That was jam-packed. Gonna have to revisit that one and slow it down and go through each and everything. I still really don't think, with the amount of information Joseph provided, I think there's more to it. So let's get him back on. Let's get into it. We're gonna have everyone on the show, folks. Not everyone. We're not gonna have everyone on the show. But if there's people that I'm interested in and there's topics, and we're gonna get them back on. And I have a lot of more things on my mind that I wanted to pick his brain about. And also, I'll tell you what, I'll be posting something in the community chat that we have on YouTube, requesting questions for Joseph or something. So if there's anything that you folks may have had questions about this episode, or even if it's controversial, who really cares, right? I love how he ended the episode there, where which he used he liked something that I said months ago, to where who cares if we have different points of views or whatever. We can have conversations and we can exchange information with love. I mean, that's the most important thing. And everyone in my community definitely knows it's not my community, it's God's community. But everyone in the community knows that that's how we roll here. That's just what the game is here at the Biblical Hitmen. Well, there was a lot of things we got into. The Jubilees is something I want to go ahead and I want to get into. But the thing that Joseph kind of pointed to, an origin point, right? Almost like where the fire starts, is kings. And basically it's running a timeline and trying to branch off uh, from there, and to try and get the full understanding of how many years are we at, from beginning of creation to now. Obviously you can see that in the Bible there's so many things that really point to a timeline, with the genealogies, with the years of people that were, how long they lived, when they died, and who they begat, and all this kind of stuff. The whole Bible, and I believe the Bible's supernatural. I think it's put together exactly how God intended it to be. I don't think that, there's certain things that are missing specifically here and there. I don't really think God necessarily works like that. Now, again, I'm open to certain things, but I also think that what God's provided for us is the Word of God. Jesus Christ is the Word made, flesh. We have to understand that the Bible, Jesus Christ, God, the Holy Spirit, it's our supernatural God, and there's nothing greater than Him. There's nothing that can manipulate Him. There's nothing that can beat Him. So He is in control of everything. Even when Satan, Lucifer, the devil, that whenever he is involved in certain things, God is still in control. Okay, like you can even see this in the story of Job. Satan had a lot of power to do a lot of things. And by the way, I think that that's kind of happening to me in my life, something that's along the lines of what Job went through. And I think that not only is it a test for me, which I do think God allows us to be tested. Again, He's not going to tempt us into sin, He's not going to tempt us with sin. But I think that God will allow us to go through certain tests. And I think me personally, especially with what I'm going through with my family. We've been trying to build a home for 2.5 years, and it's been the most worst nightmare of all time. And I appreciate everyone with their prayers, and everyone that have I haven't been specific on a lot of this stuff, but I'm kind of getting personal with y'all right now, because I've been doing the show. I've been working 100 hours a week at the fire department. I've been trying to do overtime. I literally did 13 hours of overtime, came into the house, took a really quick shower, and jumped right on the computer so that I can record with a guest and I can be able to provide content, not only just, to myself, which I love having guests on because this is a journey for me and for y'all, but also it's for you guys, and girls. It's for y'all, to where I think God's really working through this show, and I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna keep grinding, even though when I feel like the devil is trying to, not only take me away from podcasting and to want to destroy what God has built right now, but he's also trying to destroy my family. He's trying to put us through certain things that I believe are to try and take us away from what God, told me to do. And I know that's kind of hard. What are you saying, Stephen? Well, this goes back like 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I sold well, even longer than 3 years ago, 3.5, almost 4 years ago, I sold my house. I was in my first home ever at the age of 27 years old, and I lived in it for 2.5 years, and I sold it because God told me to sell it, and He was telling me to buy property, and He wants me to buy property because I'm trying to just build not only something for my daughter, something for, well, she wasn't even didn't even exist yet, but I was doing something. I just felt like, I'm the man of the household, and I I feel like I'm a leader, and that I'm here to take care of my family, and the best thing to do at that moment was to sell the house, to buy the property, and to be put through the fire. And I even told God this. I said, God, you're telling me to do this, and it's almost like He was telling me to build an ark. With building the ark, there's so much that goes to it. There's supplies, there's all this. It's not an easy job. If anything, it's a grind. And I said, God, I'm strong enough to go through anything that you're going to put me through, or I'm strong enough to go through anything that you're going to allow to happen to me. And with that all said, highly regret all that, because it's been terrible for the past 3 years. Been living in, around 700, 800 square feet. And shout out to my mother. My mom is the greatest person in my life. I'm sure my dad would be unhappy to hear that, but my mom is the greatest person I've ever had in my life. And Mom, if you're listening to the show, I know you do listen to the show. I love you very much. You've taken care of me and my family through the incredible times that we've been going through. And really, there's not even enough words that I could share on this teleprompter or screen or on the internet that would match up to how thankful I am for you. And I seriously think sometimes I'm like, is my mom an angel? The good one, folks. the good ones. No, but you're a wonderful human being, and I'm very blessed to have you in my life, and thank you for putting a roof over our heads while we're getting through this process. But we're trying to build a home out here on this property, and it's has not been the easiest thing. If anything, I think that the devil has been, or has had his hands in this whole operation the entire time, messing things up. It's taken 2.5 years to build a home. We're not even finished yet. We're not even close to being finished yet. My poor wife has been, she wants her home. What wife doesn't want her home? Who doesn't want to sit out in the backyard with a nice cup of coffee looking at cows, right? Like, I mean, that's the dream, right? At least for some people. Some people are city folk, but I used to live in the city. I grew up in the city, and I'm done with the city. I want to raise my kid in a different setting. I want to raise my child with learning how to do things with her hands. If there's any problems she has, that she doesn't necessarily have to go and pay someone to fix them, but rather she is equipped with the knowledge and the skills to perform these things on her own. And I think living on property, I think raising animals and just becoming more in tune with our makeup and our reality, and just the systems that humans a long time ago used to navigate and run, and this was a part of life. Well, I'm trying to get my family to be brought back into that kind of nature. So, but shout out to everyone. I know I did post some like a notice in the community chat, just letting you guys know to please pray for me, because I want to explain this scenario too. And this was something. So I've been on a big research project. I've been investigating, and I've been really digging into Mystery Babylon. I've been digging into the idea of this divine feminine, that there's so many things connected in this world. If anything, it's the whole entire world, and it's everything in the world that is connected to the divine feminine. But specifically, I've been really digging into what's called the New Apostolic Reformation. This is something that it consists of a lot of churches today. And I think that what is going on, what Satan's doing in the time frame that we're in, is you have the Christian church, and the Christian church is separated from the world and the religions of the world. Okay. Christian church down here, religions of the world up here. And through the New Apostolic Reformation and what's called, as far as what is a part of Trump's administration, the Seven Mountain Mandate, which is a New Apostolic Reformation movement, what they're doing is they're moving the church from here, and they're bringing it up into the same category as the rest of these religions. Now, I think why he's doing that is because there is a plan, there's an agenda that Satan has to try and bring together all of these religions and form them into one, and where the whole world becomes a one world religion. And this is the process that it would take. And I do think that there's going to be supernatural events that take place. There's going to be all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Like in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the coming of the Son of Man. And again, even though I might disagree with Joseph in some things, I think that that's probably what's going to come in to really even usher this in even quicker. Throw oxygen on the fire, if that makes any sense. Push the car off the cliff. Like, there's going to be something that really accelerates this idea. Now, I could be totally wrong. It may not have to do anything that deals with fallen angels, Nephilim, and all this kind of stuff. But it's going to deal with a false prophet. It's going to deal with a beast system, and it's going to deal with an actual antichrist, right? Like a beast. And you know what? Let's just imagine this, right? Like Little Season, for example, because I know there's some people that are in the community and they're Little Season, which that's cool. I mean, that's okay with me. Like, the thing is, this could contribute to maybe building the world in a one world army, religion, whatever, to go to battle against, Jesus in the end times, right? So I'm sure people can kind of be, at least I'm hoping I'm being transparent with some of y'all with that. But I think that with the idea of the Antichrist, the false prophet, and this beast system, the false prophet is going to send fire down from heaven. Like the Antichrist is going to do miracles and he's going to do wonders and is going to have supernatural abilities. Like we're talking about either a physical man that has the powers of the occult that are given to him by Satan, um, or the fact that these characters in this moment are like some sort of superhero Avenger style Eastern mystic looking characters. Or they're literally, maybe an extraterrestrial or a non-human intelligence that kind of channels into a human being after they, you know survive mortally a mortal head wound. you know but I thought that was actually an interesting point that I brought up to Joseph. I think I might dig into this on other shows, where what if the abomination of desolation is a sacrificial process for the Antichrist? I mean, if we see that the man of sin, or that little horn is to take a mortal, fatal head wound, and survive, or after they die, they raise from the grave. Listen, Satan's trying to counterfeit and mimic Christ. We know that. Okay, so if we talk about this scenario playing out, then this is a possibility that can happen. Okay, so if this happens, for example, at the temple, the new temple, right? The third temple, because we know that there's plans for it. We know that there's an agenda that is being moved towards it getting built in our lifetime. Okay. And even if you're 75 years old, it's in your lifetime. Okay. So I think that, for example, what if there's a doing away of the red heifers, and then, the man who does away with the red heifers is the Antichrist, the man of sin, and then boom, you know, maybe it's not all as planned as like him being sacrificed, but the way it plays out is that he is the sacrifice and then is raised from the grave and then goes into the temple and claims himself to be God, and then the whole world worships him as God. So this could be something that plays out. But I mean, hey, I'm open to anything, and I'm here just having a conversation, man. Don't kill me, man. Kill the messenger, man. All right, folks, listen, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. The audience, I'm speaking to you. I wish I knew all your names, and I would not sit here and name you all. But uh, I just want to tell you, I appreciate you for tuning in. Appreciate everyone for getting through the ad space. It's something that is the best way to support this show. And I see you guys. I see you guys getting through the ad space, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a blessing to me, my life, and my family. And so I thank you all from the bottom of my heart, for getting through that. For everyone that's new, and you want to support the show, you can head on over to YouTube. You can hit that subscribe button. It's free. Everything to support this show is free. There's been people asking me about, where can we donate to the show and all this, and I just haven't felt in my heart to really start something like that yet. But I'll pray on it, and maybe we'll see what God does. But really, the best place to support the show is just listen on audio, listen on video. We're on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, and Spotify. And whenever you're at those locations, folks, if you could please just leave a 5-star review if you like the show. And if you could just hit that follow button and the notification bell, and we release every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And oh my goodness, before I end the podcast, I totally segued from what I wanted to get into, but I'm going to cover it right now. Okay. So strap in tight for just a couple of minutes here. So I've been going down Mystery Babylon. I've been going down the idea of this divine goddess. Okay. And I know I totally segued earlier. Sorry about that. So as I've been going into this research, I've been finding a lot of things to be very pronounced as far as goddesses have been appearing to many, many mighty men in the world, as far as emperors, pharaohs, kings, and just even occultists, right? We know that with Aleister Crowley. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that has this connection with these apparitions or these entities, right? That people have experienced. But when I've been digging into this research, I'm finding out that literally Mystery Babylon is here. It is here, and I think it is in the church. Now, since I've been getting into this, I know I talked about with the New Apostolic Reformation, the Trump administration, all this kind of stuff. I mentioned in the show that, Erica Kirk, she was worshipped as a goddess. I'm not even going to lie, okay? She was worshipped as a goddess at the funeral of her husband, okay? When we look at that, we can actually look at that example with what happened with Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. Nimrod died, Semiramis became queen, and she was exalted for not only the immaculate conception that the sun ray that blasted on her and supposedly got her pregnant. We know that that's fake, but it was a ritual that was done. And I can't help but see the same exact thing happening at that funeral. But that's not the exciting part of the story. Since I've been going down this rabbit hole, I've been finding so many things, and it all leads back to divine goddess worship. And it's a real thing. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. There is not one aisle you can't go down in this world and there not be any residue or any example of the divine goddess being a part of our lives. I think it's in the church, and it's taking over the church. The Satan is an infiltrator. We know that. So what happened to me in my sleep, I don't even know, it was like maybe 5 nights ago now, maybe 4. I don't know. I don't ever want to revisit that in my life ever again. But I'm in my sleep. I'm in a dream state, and it feels real. I don't know exactly if I was pulled out into the astral realm, because I do think that these things can do that to you. If you just research that and you research people, you know, having these astral projections, it's almost like they've been taken into this space. I know I've had Vicky Joy Anderson on, and we've talked about this. uh, Sleep paralysis is another possible example of like this idea, right? Like I'm not going out there and surfing like, the stars. Okay. I'm not out there going into other galaxies. This is like how I compare this is that, I'm pulled into their domain. I'm pulled into their stadium. It's their home field. Okay. I am the foreign man there. This is not my home, and did not want to be here. So I'm in this room, and in this room, there's a woman in the room. I'm getting chills right now, dude. There's a woman in the room, and she's got a mixture of The Grudge, The Ring, and The Exorcist vibe to her. She's got her hair in front of her face, black, pitch black, and she's pissed off at me. And I'm in the room. I'm back against the wall, and it's a dream. This isn't sleep paralysis where I can't move. This is a dream. I can move, but I'm choosing not to. I'm scared, terrified. Okay, this was like real. Okay, I'm screaming. I'm screaming for it to go away. I am getting chills, y'all. I'm screaming for it to go away, and as I'm screaming for it to go away, it just starts yelling at me, and it's yelling at me, and it's snarling at me, and it wants to kill me. I'm telling you, it was like almost like this thing had an unaudible voice, but it was screaming at me, and I just can feel that it wanted to kill me, and it wanted me to stop doing what I'm doing. And that part there did not register with me yet. That part did not make any sense until I woke up after this. But I'm going to get to that point in just a second. So she's screaming at me and she's yelling at me and she's cursing me and she's very upset at who I am, what I'm doing, and what it is I'm getting into. And I could see her face at this point because the hair kind of, it's like her black hair, getting chills again. It's like her black hair like blasted backwards from, the power that she had. Um, almost like a T-Rex was like, yelling at her, and all that air was like blowing by her face. But anyways, her hair is blowing back, and as I'm looking at her face, it's torn up. It's evil. The eyes are just sinister. It's a demon, dude. Okay. And when I saw that, I got very terrified, got very scared, and when I showed that I was very scared and I did not want to be there, it like rotated with its back towards the ground, got on all fours, and started crab walking to me, which was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I just started shouting out the name of Jesus, the name of Jesus, the name of Jesus, in the name of Jesus, in the name of Jesus. And what that did is it created a threshold. It created a barrier in between me and it. And it was my wife at that moment where she heard me yelling and she heard me yelling and moaning in my sleep, and she woke me up. And when she woke me up, it obviously stopped, but I said, "Oh my goodness, I was just getting attacked." And I just love it that a godly woman stopped that as well. Just think it's beautiful. Shout out to my wife. But when that happened the next day, it hit me. It's like this is the divine goddess spirit, whatever it is, that has interacted with many people in their lives in a totally different way, because those people that, has had a history with the divine goddess, they were all bad people. They didn't believe in Jesus Christ. And if anything, what they were doing, they were being manipulated by the spirit to do things for the agenda of the spirit. I'm not doing the agenda for the spirit. I'm doing a counter agenda against it, and it's pissed. And it wanted to kill me. Like, it wanted to take me out because of what I'm here doing with this show, and what kind of conversations I'm having, and the outreach that it has with many people out there. It's This is a wonderful thing. We have to understand that when being a Bible believing Christian, when being, a believer in Jesus Christ, the enemy is against you and the enemy is after you, and there are attacks. And I believe this was one of those. But just wanted to share that story because, I'm still kind of like scared a little bit, but, I've got Jesus Christ in my heart. And, I'm just, thankful that, that I can say the name of the Lord, my Lord and Savior, at this thing, and it cannot penetrate this invisible, you know, barrier, which is awesome. But okay, everyone, that's all I wanted to share with you. I know I did it after the shout outs and everything, but hey, go ahead, support the show, audio, video, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever you could find us. And we're on social medias. Hit us up there as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This was a delightful show. I'm gonna revisit it back here once I get it out on the platforms and stuff. But I'll see you guys in the live chat. Let's have some fun. And listen, enjoy the rest of your weekend. God bless y'all. Have a safe night. Bye.